Good evening, Iowa fans, or Auburn fans, whatever the case may be. Corey Brad here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, and it is that wonderful day that we enjoy each and every year where all 68 NCAA teams have dreams of a national championship, and the Hawkeyes sitting as an 8 seed in a difficult section of the draw. I'm not going to be Debbie Downer. Certainly, I think both of these, I think Auburn is beatable. We can talk about it, but I don't know that matchup-wise, this was the best case scenario. That's my initial reaction to this draw. I don't love Houston as a potential second-round matchup, but again, we have had years, or at least I've had years, where I've liked Iowa's draw, like last year, and then it hasn't mattered. So maybe the year where I say, hey, I think the draw stinks, maybe that'll be the year that Iowa makes it to the Sweet 16 or beyond. We're here to talk Iowa basketball, Auburn Tiger basketball, and we can talk about the actual path to the Sweet 16. We can talk about the draw for the Hawkeyes and the bracket in general. I've got some initial observations about other teams as well. We can certainly talk about that. But this is a call-in show. The number to call in here at Hawkeye Hangout. This is an edition of Hawkeye Hangout, so it's viewer involved. You can call us here, 515-635-1601. We take calls during Hawkeye Hangout, folks. 515-635-1601. Link to join StreamYard in the description below. So again, the Hawkeyes are seeded as an 8 seed in the Midwest region. They'll play down in Birmingham, Alabama. The news, as you can say, is play Alabama in Birmingham. For Alabama in that second round, I think. I trust Alabama. If I'm a lot more confident teams. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that Houston. It's fair to say Houston has been there. They've done that. They've got great coaching. Alabama has had a tumultuous season. A lot of weird stuff happening. We obviously know about the Brent situation. And Alabama's good. Saying Houston two teams that play defense going up against Iowa potentially. If Iowa can get by Auburn in the first round and Houston takes care of it well. Dealing with some network errors here. Let me see if I can fix this. All right, we'll see if we can get this network issue figured out. Let's go to Doug while I try to fix the problem with our stream.
Yeah, you're cutting in now.
Doug.
Yes. Hello?
Yes. Are you with us, Doug?
Yeah, I'm right here. You're cutting in now on me. I don't know if I'm cutting in out on you, but how you doing, Corey?
Nope, you're I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Yeah, everyone last week told me that they don't let the lower seeds play close to home or in their home state. Well, Auburn just got a home game in their home state. So I guess, I don't know. Like I said,
you know what's crazy about what you just said, Doug, is I'm sitting here and I saw the draw when it came out and I had my initial observations, and dumb me, I didn't even think, hey, Auburn's playing in Alabama. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about it. That's a very interesting observation.
Well, and I was I want to thank one of your ours. Tony is always sticking up for me on in the Iowa group and different things. And you had Shelby and Tim on, and they said that scenario could happen for Iowa to play in Des Moines. Well, now it's Auburn doing it in Birmingham. It's about the exact same distance, and which wouldn't have happened if they think Houston's the second best team. They think Houston's better than Kansas because they gave Houston the Midwest and made Kansas go out to Las Vegas, and because the Sweet 16 is in Kansas City. I'm really shocked on all that. That Kansas is going to have to go out to Las Vegas, and hopefully maybe we'll go to go to Kansas City. I'm hoping we're in Kansas City. All three Iowa schools can play in the Sweet 16 in Kansas City, which I think is pretty cool. We could play Drake in the Sweet 16. That would be a really cool thing. Again, I don't like filling out the brackets with my Hawkeye goggles on. I don't do very well with that. So, again, I have been able to meet Bruce Pearl a couple times, actually, when they had their reunion for the 87 team. He was here. It was in between. I think it was in between jobs, or he was suspended from jobs or something at the time, because he came back in 87 with like Roy Marble and those guys. It might have been in the early 2000s. I'm trying to think if he was after Tennessee or before Tennessee. I don't know. But he was back in Iowa City, and I just got an autograph from each of the guys from the 87 team, which Coach Close was on, but he wasn't there because he was coaching at Wisconsin. But
by the way, just so you're aware, Doug, I know you're sure not watching it. They just announced that Iowa was the 32 overall seed. So that means they were, my math is correct, they were one spot away from being a 9.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's interesting. And like I say, Auburn was as the 9 seed. What you said about Vegas is interesting, and I am a little bit surprised. I trust Houston. That's what I said at the outset. I trust Houston to make a run more than any of the other 1 seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I just do. I mean, I understand they play in a weak conference, and people never respect them, and that's part of the reason why it makes me nervous.
What was their score today? They lost, didn't they?
Didn't they lose to Memphis?
Mm-hmm. Sorry for asking questions like that.
Here. No, you're good. Let me see here. So the final score today, Houston-Memphis, was 75-65. So, yeah. I mean, they're beatable. Don't get me wrong. They're beatable. But, boy, I tell you, with Iowa's struggles from behind the arc, and I say struggles, I mean, they've had days, we know this, they've had days where they've been unreal from behind the arc. You think about the Michigan State game. You think about the Indiana game on the road. You think about the Rutgers game on the road. You think about Ohio State on the road. They have had games where they've shot well away from home. But then you look at the games where they haven't. I mean, it's feast or famine with this team, Doug.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, going up against this 3-point defense that is Auburn, going up against a Houston team that's predicated on defense. I mean, I don't know. Iowa's going to be fresh, but they're going to have to figure out a way to shoot away from home against good defense. That's going to be hard to replicate in practice.
Yeah, it's you're an 8-9 seed, and we knew that they would be an 8-9 seed. You know, we could talk. Some people were saying Alabama was a better draw. You don't. I don't know. No matter who those teams are, they're going to be amazing. And that 9th seed. I was going to ask you, do you have any information kind of that you could share about Auburn, like the KenPom stuff, or like what they're, I don't know, any of that stuff you can look up while we're on the show.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Like I say,
I don't know anything about Auburn other than Bruce Pearl. I imagine.
I just know they play really good defense, and let me pull up their numbers here on KenPom for anybody who's wondering. The Auburn Tigers are the 29th best defense in the country in defensive efficiency, 48th overall in offensive efficiency. They're 29th overall in KenPom, which is 8 spots higher than the Hawkeyes. And of course, we've talked about these KenPom numbers in the Iowa show before. Iowa 3rd in the country in offensive efficiency, 167th in the country in defensive efficiency. I'm curious to see. Does not look like KenPom has. Maybe Bart Torvik does. I'm just curious on Auburn's numbers against the 3-point shot. Let me see if I can find that here, because again, that is a team that in past seasons Auburn has been very reliant on the 3.
Yeah.
I mean, now they're another team. I mean, Houston and Auburn, those are 2 teams and 2 coaches, very well coached, right? Yeah. I mean, this might be the best small quadrant of coaches between Kelvin Sampson and Bruce Pearl that you could possibly draw up. I mean, what a star-studded first and second round pair of matchups.
Well, I was going to say, I wish we had Coach Close on, because he's worked with Bruce Pearl all the way back to Stanford and 2 schools for like 15 years. So Do you know much about the Bruce Pearl and the Illinois stuff and the blackball? Like he had a hard time getting a job. You know much about that stuff, Corey?
I really don't. I mean, my memory, my age, my memory of Bruce Pearl was the fallout at Tennessee, and I met Bruce Pearl once as well, and seemed like a great guy. I've never had an opportunity to have a real long conversation with Bruce Pearl. I respect the heck out of him as a head coach. I'll be interested to hear, because we're going to try to have Gary on for a preview show. I'm anxious to hear. Gary's not going to say a bad word about Bruce Pearl, but I am anxious to hear his perspective on everything that's happened in Bruce Pearl's career, because it's been, let's be honest, there has been some dark times in the Bruce Pearl legacy.
Well, he was blackballed. That's the reason why he couldn't get a head coaching job. Ended up in Southern Indiana. He taped a player without the player's knowledge, a recruit that went to Illinois who claimed to get like an SUV from Illinois, and he tried to use that against Illinois back in like the early 90s. I don't think that made any sense what I just said. But
no, that's interesting. I've heard about that. Maybe it's from you. Maybe you brought it up before.
I don't think Coach Close will talk about it.
Probably not. No. And by the way, I just was looking up teamrankings.com, which sometimes has holes, but their analytics have, these are true analytics. Alabama has the fifth best 3-point defense in the country as it relates to opponent 3-point percentage. They allow their opponents to shoot a measly 28.8% from behind the arc. Put that in perspective. The number one team is Bruce Pearl's former team, Tennessee. Number 2, Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I'm telling you, Doug, you cannot dream up a more difficult path to the Sweet 16. In my opinion, I could be wrong.
No, I was looking at the 8-9, the first 8-9 teams. I was like, no, Iowa, because I really wanted us to play in Des Moines, and I thought we'd play against Kansas, and because that's what one of the Lenardis had. There's a lot of other 8, 9, 10 seeds I would much rather have played than Auburn. I think, again, I don't know. And
I was more looking at the 1 seed. I understand Alabama was going to play in Birmingham, and maybe I overlooked that. I remember Iowa having to play Gonzaga out in Spokane, and that was I hated that, right? You hate that. But I do feel like Alabama is the one seed that I look at and say, hey, they could be vulnerable. They've had a lot of off-court issues. I still wonder about Nate Oates. His decision-making, etc. I could see Iowa beating them. Not saying Iowa can't beat Houston, but man, Fran McCaffrey's going to have to coach his tail off. Iowa's going to have to, Houston, that's the other thing about Houston. They play a physical brand of basketball. They're defensive, but they play a physical brand of basketball. And as you know, Doug, Iowa has struggled at times against teams that play kind of a backyard ball.
I guess I have a couple last questions for you, and because I know there's a lot of people, and I don't know how long you're going to stay on. But what do you feel about Rutgers getting left out?
Disappointed. I don't. Again, I shouldn't really give an opinion on. Well, I think this resume, like they're breaking down. Well, Seth Davis acts like he knows what he's talking about. I think this resume is better than this resume. Give me a break. Seth Davis doesn't follow it nearly as much as the committee members or certainly the bracketologists out there. I'm just disappointed for Rutgers, and I wonder if it was the Mowat Mag injury that they're looking at what they did. We talked with Shelby Mast and Tim Kruger about that. I wonder how much the committee looked at Rutgers and said, look, they have been this team since Mag went down, and they were this team before. We're not getting the team before. We're getting the team without Mowat Mag. And I really thought that with that win against Michigan in the turn, I thought they were in. I thought that sealed the deal. And I understand we can't have those. Maybe I shouldn't have ever thought that. But I really thought with that win over Michigan, I thought they're going to make it.
Yeah.
And they lose a close game to Purdue.
Yeah.
They didn't get killed by Purdue. They lost a close game to Purdue. I'm disappointed. I like Steve Peichel a lot. I have more respect for him than probably any other coach in this conference. And I'm just disappointed for those players because, they haven't been playing well, but you can't control it. Injuries are part of the game. I get it, but I thought they were deserving.
I did too. I thought, and this is where I'm going to end it and let all the better callers call in. But I just thought a lot, like the Big Ten, and again, I'm a homer, but I thought like Northwestern got a little gypped. Illinois is a 9 seed. I don't look at resumes, and I don't know what the Big East has and doesn't have. But, I do watch the Big 12. I'm in Cyclone country. I was shocked that we only got 8 teams in. And I was shocked that Penn State was a 10 seed. I thought with their run that they would go up in seeding. I don't know.
Remember, Doug, we've talked about that with Tim.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked last year. You remember just a year ago, Tim talked about how the conference tourneys are overrated and we sometimes put way too much. I mean, they were on the other side of the bubble not that long ago.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Heading into this tournament, they were perceived to be they were projected as a last 4 in team.
Mm-hmm.
I think getting up to that 10 line was about their ceiling. I think if they had beaten Purdue, maybe they get to a 9. But I get it. I don't think they're going up much more than a 10.
You think the Big Ten was respected? They didn't not.
Here's what I think. Here's what I think, Doug. And I could be totally off on this, and maybe a committee member will say, no, that's totally wrong. I would love for a committee member to jump on here. I'm sure they won't. But what I would love to hear from the committee is there any chance that possibly the Big Ten's recent struggles in this tournament influenced those close decisions, right?
Yep.
And with a situation like Rutgers, and I understand they were the second team out, apparently. Oklahoma State was the first team out. But you wonder when they're weighing teams that are almost identical at resume. And you understand we're splitting hairs when you get down there to the 68, 67, 68 team in. I just wonder if when you're splitting hairs there, if the nod is maybe given to a team from a conference that has performed well in March. And I just wonder if maybe it's going to take the Big Ten a year where they get to that second weekend and potentially get some teams to the third weekend to kind of rebuild some reputation there.
Oh, I guess I got one more question, and you can. I don't think you're gonna say us, but
by the way, I'm not rushing you off here, Doug. We got all the time in the world, so no, I'm not rushing you off.
Which team outside of maybe Purdue has the best chance for Elite 8? I'm not even gonna go to Final Four. Elite 8, you think?
Well, I'm gonna
Indiana. Indiana might have to go.
Yeah. So great. In the Big Ten.
In the Big Ten, because you say we need success from a Big Ten team. What would be the Big Ten team? I don't have the bracket. You have more stuff in front of you than I do.
Yeah.
But
you're saying other than Purdue.
Other than Purdue, what team would be most likely just to make the Elite 8, not even the Final Four?
Maybe Michigan State. I don't know, man. I didn't watch. I'll be totally upfront. I didn't watch Ohio State, Michigan State start to finish because when I was out, I just go into my shell and I'm just like, who cares? But I was surprised that Ohio State won that ball game. Ohio State played great this week. I still try. I look at Marquette. I don't know that they've ever been a 2 seed before. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Well, they won a national title in '77, but I don't know what the seeding.
I don't think they were a 2 seed though. I believe I read that. I could be wrong on that.
No,
they're a 2 seed. They haven't been there in a long time. I mean, right now Michigan State's in a section with USC in the first round. I don't think the Pac-12 is very good at all, so I don't know how much I trust USC. They get potentially Marquette in the second round, and then Kansas State or Kentucky in the Sweet 16. So I think Michigan State, and it's weird me saying that as a 7, but yeah, I mean, seed-wise, the Big Ten. I mean, you got Purdue as a 1. You've got, you got Northwestern as a 7, but they get a tricky Boise State team. And I still think TCU, when they're healthier, that's going to be tough to get past the second round or third round. And let's not forget about Gonzaga in that section. That's a tough draw for Northwestern. So I don't know if you wonder. Last year, you look at what Iowa did. You make the run to Sunday. You win the tournament. You bow out in the first round. I'm not reading into what Penn State did at all. I do think Penn State's dangerous because of their experience, because of Jalen Pickett, because of their guard play. But at the same time, I'm not going to read too far into it because I did that last year.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is sorry to you because I always just and I'm gonna stop doing anything to do with the transfer portal because there are about 25 guys in it. So I just wanted to tell people, I'm not gonna post anything or do anything with the transfer portal because it is pointless at this point.
And you have seen that Iowa has made contact with a few guys already.
Yes, at least that's what they claim. So
that's what they're claiming. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'd love to see Brad back on, talk about the Swarm and stuff. And
we'll get him back on.
Because I've had a couple people in different groups and chat rooms say we can't compete with the NIL money. And you had Brad on, and I didn't quite hear that out of his mouth.
Yeah, so I don't buy that. I think maybe a year ago one could say that because things weren't established like they are now. But I think
quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not implying that Iowa, somehow got $1 million for Cade McNamara to come here. I don't think that happened, but they're in a position to make a run for some people. And I'm a little bit surprised at the guys I shouldn't even say target because we don't know if they're targeting these guys. They're just reports of contact. But I think we're going to hear that a lot. I think you're going to hear guys reporting, hey, Iowa made contact with me. That does not necessarily mean that Fran's offering these guys. Yeah. Contact is a lot different than offering or pursuing or getting a guy on campus for a visit. So it's going to be entertaining. If the football early window for football was any indication, this basketball window will be intriguing.
I used to in high school get so upset. I went to a pretty big high school named High. Get so upset when somebody goes, "I'm getting D1 recruits." Well, it's a mass mailing. They give it to about 10 guys on the football team. You know, I mean, that's not really like you're getting recruited by. You know, it's not a personalized letter. It's a mass mailing.
Well, the one kid, Doug, I was gonna say one kid. I don't even have it. I could go look his name up. But the one kid that one of the kids that was reported as having been offered or contacted by Iowa in the last few days. He's got a list of like 2 pages of schools that have contacted him, and he's coming off. He has already taken visits to like UMass, Lowell, and
I saw the same guy.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, if I understand dummy as it relates to the portal, but I'm thinking, okay, Iowa's contacting him. Maybe he'll end up on the Iowa campus. But if he's taking visits to UMass, Lowell, and Barney Academy, probably not going to get an offer from Iowa. Who knows? I mean, some of these guys have put up really good numbers, but they're at really low major schools.
Yeah. Going back to recruiting, and I know we want to talk about the NCAA tournament, but going back to recruiting, getting mailed a questionnaire is just it's not recruiting. Like I said, they reach out, and like I said, they'll be, if you go to 247, there's literally 50 guys that they say have been contacted by Iowa or Iowa's interested in, and Iowa obviously won't have 50 basketball players. I know that was one of Iowa State's big issues, that Iowa State would over offer in football. But I mean, we just want to wait and see. I don't, like I said, this year I'm just going to stay back and, whoever signs, and hope that'll be good. I'm just looking forward to Thursday, taking the day off.
I like how you just throw that in there. Taking the day off.
Yep. I've told everyone that.
What time is the game? I didn't even. What time?
I don't know if it's been posted yet.
Okay. All right. We'll get.
But I'm really looking forward to this week, and when you get Coach Close, I don't know when that will be. Ask him about Bruce Pearl. I don't think, like you said, I don't think he's going to say anything negative, but there's some story. That guy has stories. And I've shared a couple of them going back to Boston College, the 30 for 30 that he was in. Like I said, he has some stories. And so, I've heard a lot of interviews with him. He's a very colorful coach. And like I said, I wish we didn't have to play Bruce Pearl in the first round. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate the call. I think Bruce Pearl's a good guy. Again, I know he's had sort of a sketchy past with some things, with some violations and some accusations. I think he's a good guy. By the way, to our people who are on the phone line, if you're calling in, all right, hang on the line. We're going to get right back to you. I'm going to put you on hold, and let's go back to our phone line. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here. Who's on the line? Who is this? Okay. Let's move on to our next person. Who's on the line? I am good, Alan. How are you?
Defense. And I've seen Auburn play a couple of times this year, and they are a physical team. They defend the three extremely well. And the one thing, as I've seen throughout the year with Iowa, is they struggle against defensive teams. So I think it's a really tough matchup. I know on CBS, a lot of the experts really liked Iowa, but I think it's a real toss-up game. And if Iowa does not play defense and shore up their defense, they're going to lose that game. I'm telling you.
Oh, hey, listen, you don't got to tell me. I know, man. And by the way, don't call Seth Davis an expert. He's no expert.
I know. I've met him. Yeah, he's really not. I actually love Jay Wright. I wish he was going back to coaching, but he's the guy I would listen to.
Oh, Jay Wright is fantastic.
Fantastic.
He is fabulous. But you're right about that. And by the way, Alan, just a side note, had they been to I heard Iowa State, so Iowa State's going to Greensboro. Are you heading over to the?
Yes, I will be heading down to Greensboro. I was shocked that Duke didn't get that region. I know that Duke is going to Orlando, and being down here, and that's the one team I think has a chance to go really far, because I think if you've watched Duke the last 2 months, they've been unbelievable. They've played extremely well. I think Shire has done a really good job over the last 2 months. And I think they got a 5 seed in the East. And I actually think they can come out of the East, or they can play Marquette in the East final at Madison Square Garden. I actually think Duke has a.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Sorry.
Yep. I just was to say, I think you're right about Duke. I think they're dangerous. They're coming on at the right time. I will say this: you've got a really interesting draw in Greensboro. You got Iowa State playing the winner of Mississippi State Pitt, and then you've got Jack Nungy and Xavier playing the winner of that Iowa State game. So yeah, if I was closer to Greensboro, that would be a phenomenal section of the draw to monitor in person.
And 2 more questions. One thing on Rutgers, and I think they got screwed the most, because I know they lost 2 games at the buzzer, but what I didn't understand is that the committee didn't take into account that loss earlier this year against Ohio State. I mean, the refs screwed them on the last play of the game. So I'm telling you, if Rutgers got that victory in Ohio State, I think they're in. I truly believe so. I think they would have been in.
That's a good point. That's one of those few games this year where you look at the result and you have to acknowledge that game was. I think most pundits have admitted that game was lost due to officiating, and that's a great point. And like I said, I'll be interested to hear. Maybe it was brought up during the end of the selection show and I missed it, but I'll be interested to hear if the committee looked at Rutgers differently based on how they're playing with their current set of players. In other words, without Mawot Mag. And I brought that up to our earlier caller, Alan. And
they did. They actually did bring them up, because I think the committee chair actually brought up that Rutgers, they took into account that injury as a factor why they didn't get in. I think they were
I have a problem to cut you off, Alan, but you know what I have a problem with that? I think it's going to potentially spur teams and coaches to not be forthright about injuries, because if you acknowledge that a guy's out for the season, you're potentially hurting your tournament resume. Why if you are Steve Peichel, why would you now, moving forward, why would you ever publicly announce that a guy's out for the season? Why wouldn't you just say, well, he's out for now, we hope to get him back? Like, why would you ever announce him out for the season?
Totally agree with you. And I have a bunch of friends who are Rutgers fans, and they love Peichel and they love what Rutgers has done the last couple of years in the Big Ten. And they totally agree with you. They say they got screwed. And that injury, I think, is a big factor, as well as that referee mistake at the Ohio State game. But one final comment. Again, I grew up in the Northeast, so I grew up a St. John's fan. So word is that Pitino will be the next head coach at St. John's in a couple of weeks. What do you think of that? Because that's going to be an interesting transition going from Iona to St. John's, just from an outsider's viewpoint.
Outsider's viewpoint is the fact that I first of all, I believe in second chances for people. Rick Pitino obviously had some really weird, sketchy stuff happen at Louisville. We all know about the stories there. For a school named St. John's to go after Rick Pitino, I'm not saying it's dumb, but I'm saying it's bold. And
I think that they are absolutely going to do it, because if you know one thing about St. John's, their new AD is a guy who came from Duke. And I know they have a lot of money in terms of NAL money coming into St. John's. And if you look at their last couple of coaches, they just have not done the job. And I think it's time for St. John's to revert back to the 1980s St. John's. So I think if you can get a guy like Rick Pitino, who's been successful the last couple of years, 20 minutes up the road in New Rochelle at Iona, I think it's time for now to go get him. I understand he's had a sketchy past, but he is in my opinion, considered one of the top 5 coaches of all time. I truly believe so.
I agree with you. But I guess the reason I bring up his past is, to me, you look at a program like St. John's, and given its religious affiliation and just its history, to go after somebody with as murky and muddied of a past as Rick Pitino, I think is a bold move from that vantage point. Basketball wise, it's a slam dunk hire. I agree with you.
I agree with you, but if St. John's has not been a laughing stock for the last 20 to 25 years, I would totally agree with you. They would not go after Rick Pitino. But the way that this program has completely fallen off the map, like a Georgetown, to get a guy who's in their state right now and to try to rebuild their program, I understand it's a dangerous move based on his past, but Rick Pitino is the right coach at the right time, and I think he's the right fit there.
Yeah, I think you could be right. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Corey. Looking forward to chatting with you about Iowa in the fall.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it, sir. All right, let's keep going here. I'm intrigued, and we're going to run through the bracket here. By the way, for anybody who's wondering, if you're not aware, and I appreciate our let me find the well, I guess we have it up on the screen. Copper Stacker, thank you for this. Yes, the Iowa women are projected as potentially a number 1 seed. I believe ESPN's got them as a number 1. Selection show at 7. Plan is likely to go off the air at 7 and then come back on the air after, I think. Let's leave it at that, I think. Okay, we've got callers here waiting to jump on. But before we get to our next caller, I want to remind everybody that this show is, of course, sponsored by our wonderful people down at Ascent Nutrition in Des Moines, in Florida. Actually, he's an Iowa-based former Iowa graduate based down in Florida. But boy, if you need great health products, and who doesn't need to be taking care of their body, you can get their organic, mold and mycotoxin-free coffee. Visit goascentnutrition.com. They've got great products, folks, and I'll show you their website here in a little bit. But again, support our sponsors, Ascent Nutrition, and as you're supporting our sponsors, you're supporting us here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We're going to put our next caller on hold, and let's go to, I believe we've got Ryan. Ryan, how you doing?
Corey. Hi, Corey. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
All right. I wish we could strike a deal and trade with the Illinois Illini. We'll trade down to the 9 seed in Des Moines for the 8 seed in Birmingham, and they get a chance to stick it to Bruce Pearl. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Been interesting to know if Coach Close knows anything about Coach Pearl, or how he coaches, anything about him.
He knows a lot. He knows a lot about him because he coached with him.
He did.
Right?
He did.
Okay. You're being sarcastic.
Extremely.
Okay.
Extremely. Yeah. So real quick before we get into other things, the Deion Thomas thing. Deion Thomas is Illinois' all-time leading scorer. In 1988, he was a soft commit to Iowa. And so we thought we were getting like the top 5 player in the country out of Simeon in Chicago. All of a sudden, when it came pretty close to signing day, he signs with Illinois. Bruce Pearl taped a phone call without Thomas's knowledge, where Thomas told him he got $80,000 in a Chevy Blazer to sign with Illinois. So he had it on tape, turned it in the NCAA, but it was kind of illegally obtained, and so they really made Deion Thomas redshirt 1 year as a penalty. He got the year back. He becomes the all-time leading scorer. And what was interesting is whenever Illinois would play at Carver, 15,500 people would take their keys out and chant Blazer, Blazer whenever he would touch the ball or go to the free throw line. But most importantly, Bruce Pearl was not allowed to travel to Illinois for his safety. It was a real ugly situation. It was really bad. But Coach Close knows all that. I guarantee you.
Well, and I'll be anxious to hear if Gary is willing to talk about it. Maybe he will. I mean, I don't know. Gary's a pretty upfront guy, but Doug brought that up earlier, and yeah, you wonder if Bruce had stayed here, like if he had somehow gotten the Iowa job, how would things have changed if he had somehow ended up back at Iowa? You wonder if maybe this is, I don't want to say it's his dream job, but I mean he was a budding young coach at Iowa with under Dr. Tom, and I think some people maybe expected him to be back here someday. That probably will never happen.
Well, when Alford left and we ended up getting Licklider, one of the first calls allegedly made was to Tennessee and Bruce Pearl, and he was really starting to take off at Tennessee and declined. So yeah, there was some interest definitely to try to get him back, but I think he has completely moved on. He always has seemed to root for Iowa for the most part. I think, loves Tom Davis and what he had here. Of course, I don't know. Like a 9 seed getting an essential home game is kind of tough for me. But that and the other thing I'm just insulted by is Rutgers not making it on a 40 net. You beat the number 1 seed in Purdue earlier in the year. And on one hand, they say, well, it's about the body of work. What you do in November also matters as much as what you do in March. So they had a player hurt, but really, you're telling me that even with that guy injured, that they're not worthy of a play-in game over the Fighting Alfords or Nevada or Pitt or ASU? They're better than all 3 of those guys. Their resume's better than all 3 of those guys. And those guys wouldn't hold a candle to Purdue any day of the week or twice on Sunday. So I don't get that one bit. I'm pretty pissed off if I'm a Rutgers fan right now.
I wanted to find Rutgers. I'm just finding their resume here as far as quad 1 victories. So they've got 4 quad 1 victories. And who was it that got in today with 1? Was it North Carolina State?
I think so, yeah.
Quad victory.
Yeah.
It's hard, man. It's like you've got such a discrepancy in all these different conferences, the Big 12 and the Big 10, especially the Big 12. But these 2 conferences are viewed in such a different light. And I still have a lot of questions about the net rankings and how they're graded throughout the season as it relates to conference versus conference wins. Because once the non-conference has been established, it's hard to move. Like the conference as a whole, it's not going to move down far in the rankings because it's playing each other. You know what I'm saying? It's playing
exactly.
And you just wonder if perhaps it's hard to do. I get it. It's a hard formula to master, but then you look at the situation like this with Rutgers, and they've got 4 quad 1 victories, and a team like North Carolina State gets in with 1. Rutgers is 19-13 on the season. They're 4-7 in quad 1 victories. Now, the naysayers would say, well, they're 2-4 in quad 3 games. So I think doesn't Iowa have at least 3 quad, maybe 2 quad 3 and quad 4 losses. Now Iowa has probably 1 more quad 1 victory right now, but Iowa was safely in. Iowa ended up, I'm pulling up the numbers. Iowa ended up with 4 quad 1 victories. They had 3 quad 3 and quad 4 losses.
And don't you think, when you, granted Chris Murray and Connor were injured, the Wisconsin game, Chris was out, Eastern Illinois, but you should have been able to win that game with your second string, quite frankly, Chris notwithstanding. I saw that we were rated 32 out of 68 in total rank. I think we were overseeded, quite honestly. And it's pretty rare that you sound like you're complaining about being overseeded, but I was firmly expecting a 9, if not a 10, just because we did not finish strong. We lost what was it? Like we were 2-5 our last 7 games, I think, or something like that. Well, one of those games was the second biggest comeback in NCAA history. I mean, from that standpoint, even though it was a win and a great day, and I was, over the moon, yeah, I almost kind of count that as a loss because it shouldn't have taken such dramatics to pull off a win. We really, I'm not going into the Fran fade stuff or anything like that, but we did not really finish terribly strong. You lose at home against a very beatable Nebraska team. We didn't. We lost twice, in fact, to them. We did better against the NCAA tournament teams in the Big Ten than we did the low end of the Big Ten. This is a very, very strange team. Anything can happen. So hopefully Auburn has an off shooting night and we don't.
But by the way, let me just finish real quick what I was going to say about North Carolina State, Ryan. Carolina, pull up their resume. North Carolina State has one quad 1 victory. They're 1-6 against quad 1 teams. They're 15-0 against quad 3 and 4. So basically what the committee is telling you is that losing to quad 3 and 4 teams is much worse, or I should say much more consequential than winning against quad 1 teams. And yet you look at Iowa, who also has 3 quad 3 and quad 4 losses, and Iowa's comfortably in as an 8.
Right.
I don't quite understand that. And if we're going to read that much into injuries, then you're going to give I think you're going to give motivation for certain teams to be less transparent as it relates to the extent of injuries on their team, which makes sense.
Real quick, couple questions. Do you have some sleepers in the Final Four yet? And then I got a comment on Brock Harding real fast.
Well, let me just, since you asked the question, this is a good opportunity to do this. I'm going to go ahead and share, and of course anybody can Google this, so you can find it if you want. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so people can actually see what I'm talking about when I talk about certain regions. And again, I jumped on here, as you know, Ryan, right as soon as the bracket was released. So here's what we got as it relates to region. I'm going to make this full screen so everybody can see what I'm talking about. All right, perfect. So again, if I'm an Iowa fan, and this is just my opinion, I think some people disagreed with this on Twitter when I tweeted it out initially. To me, I think that Alabama is the weakest of, or I should say the most vulnerable of the 1 seeds. So I was hoping for a placement over here. Now, you're playing a dangerous West Virginia team, but a West Virginia team would be up and down. They've been up and down all year at 19-14. I think I like Iowa's chances against West Virginia more so than I do against Auburn. I think both those teams are beatable. Heck, they're 9 seeds. Now, Alabama playing in Birmingham, I mean, that's a true road game in the round of 32. I get it. But to me, that would have been my preferred region. As far as sleepers, Ryan, again, we can run through the rest of these draws here in a second. I like I said earlier, I think from the Big Ten, if you're looking at draw, I think Michigan State has the best draw. You see them down here as a 7 seed playing USC in the first round. I think Marquette, obviously, they have a terrific season, winning the Big East at 28-6. But I don't think the Pac-12 is all that great. I haven't watched a lot of USC basketball this year. But boy, you got potentially Marquette in the second round if you're a Spartan fan. And then you got a team that's pretty green on the big stage in Kansas State at 23-9 as the 3 seed in that section. A Kentucky team who's going to be tough to beat because of Oscar Tshiebwe and John Calipari, and obviously their experience as a staff coaching in this tournament. But I think that's the most favorable draw. And Michigan State's also playing in a familiar place in Columbus. So I think probably from the Big Ten, they're maybe my sleeper team to make a Final Four, or at least an Elite 8. I don't love Illinois' section. Again, I'll do more research before I make my official picks, but I think Arkansas is a dangerous draw as an 8 seed. Really impressed with what St. Mary's did as the season went on. They were really good in their conference tournament, lost to Gonzaga. And frankly, Gonzaga, I mean, boy, lurking down here is a 3 seed. TCU's in that section. I think Northwestern's got their hands full just to get out of the first weekend, let alone make a run to the Elite 8. And again, I'm just looking different places, Ryan, to see where can the Big Ten make some headway, because I think there's some reputation on the line for this conference. They've struggled in recent years in this tournament. Penn State's another one. I mean, Texas is red hot. I mean, dominated Kansas this weekend. A&M's going to be a tough draw. Man, I don't know. I think Drake, if you're talking about an Iowa team, Drake is going to be tough. I wouldn't be shocked to see. Would you be shocked to see the Bulldogs take down Miami in the first round, Ryan?
I think they're going to take down Miami in the first round. Absolutely.
So maybe maybe Indiana gets to the second weekend. They get Kent State in the first round.
I think Kent State beats Indiana as well. I'm not being. These are two excellent teams, and I think this is going to be the tournament. If we, for all the years we've done this thing, I think you have more parity in this tournament than ever before, and you're going to have a lot of 12, 13, 10 seeds go a lot further than one would normally see in a tournament. I like Drake. I like Kent State. I love Charleston. Who's the other one? Furman. Furman has a very good shot at beating Charleston. Those are four sleepers that I have.
I'll just tell you one more team to look for outside of the Big Ten. Watch for this team. Would not be surprised to see them make a run to the Elite Eight or even the Final Four, and that is the Blue Jays over here, number 6, Tim Kruger's team, playing an NC State team, like I said earlier, who's done almost nothing on the big stage this year. They have one quad one win all year. Creighton's red hot. I think they lost like 2 games in the last 2 months or something ridiculous like that. Baylor will be tough, but Iowa State, I mean, heck, Cyclones just beat Baylor twice in a row. I like Creighton to get to the second weekend and possibly make a run to the Elite Eight.
I agree with you, Corey, totally. I got to sit down and do the bracket, but I'm definitely picking those 4 teams to advance at least the first round and probably at least half, if not more, in the Sweet 16. Another team is Santa Barbara to watch out for. But and then real quick, Brock Harding. So take this all for a grain of salt. My dad is a big basketball guru. He's been making predictions about players in high school and how he thinks they project in college for 25 years to me. And even though sometimes I feel like he's a little more on the critical side than he should be, 90% of the time the guy turns out to be pretty darn close to right at, what their quickness is, what their basketball IQ is, how they play, how they will fit into the system, this, that, and the other. I have never heard him more excited about an Iowa recruit than Brock Harding. He doesn't look like much, 6 foot. Before you were alive, there was an Ohio State point guard named Jay Burson who was just outstanding. He kind of said he plays a little bit. He didn't say he's as good, but he said he plays a lot like Isaiah Thomas did. Very lightning quick, great shooter, great passer. He said his passes remind him a lot of Caitlin Clark's passes. And I've never heard a guy so excited about an Iowa recruit. I don't know if I've ever heard him as excited about an Iowa recruit. He said he's hands down going to be the best point guard Fran ever had here, at least in the Fran era. And I haven't really watched a whole lot of him play, just whatever I can find on YouTube for the most part. I'm planning on watching some links from the championship last night. But just kind of wanted to mention that. And I know a while back we were talking about him possibly redshirting. Sounds like if he's this good, Ulis might be the odd man out, actually.
Okay, well, Fran likes his ball handlers, but all I know is Ulis is back, potentially. Tony Perkins is back. DeSante Bowen is a 4-star coming back. That's if they don't do any work in the portal, and assuming none of those guys leave. So you could be right. Maybe he'll play right away. Remember, point guard is probably the toughest position. Well, I don't want to say that because I haven't coached the position. I wouldn't be surprised if Gary, I'd like to ask him that question, but my guess is that point guard is maybe the toughest position to learn as a freshman at this level. I could be wrong on that, but I would be surprised.
And yet many do it. Many still do it, even though I think that's a correct statement that you just made. but yet many do it.
Yeah. And Desante Bowen did it. I mean, Desante Bowen has played quite a bit this year. More than honestly, if you had asked me early in the year, if I thought Desante Bowen was going to play most of the year, I'd have said yes, because I would have thought Fran playing him early, he was committing to, hey, we're going to let him learn trial by fire. And he's kind of done the opposite. He's just kind of faded, and I'm surprised that he even played Desante, but maybe he showed flashes earlier in the year. That kid's got a great upside, as you know.
Hey, like I asked a question to Coach Close after we lost to Ohio State. Second game in a row, we got really nothing out of Ulyss. I said, what was the harm in playing Desante Bowen to get a spark? You just don't play that well against Duke and Iowa State and some others where he looked like he was going to be a superstar by the end of the year, and then a couple off games and he was just buried. Well, I think Fran made a big mistake burying him and not staying with him, because Coach Close said, and I kind of agree with him, it's too late. You really can't use him at this point. But it's really a shame that we had to get to that point to where I agree you can't use him at this point. But I'll tell you what, that was still the same dude who balled against some of our preseason tougher opponents and shined. So what, he hit the wall a little bit. Let him work through it. He was too talented and a wasted opportunity, I feel.
Ryan, I appreciate your call, sir, and always appreciate your insight. And we'll talk to you later with the women's bracket.
Are we going to get a 1 seed?
Boy, I would trust. Is it Charlie Cream? Is that his name? The ESPN guy. As uneducated as I am with the landscape and the resumes for the women's game, I wouldn't doubt Charlie's work. So my guess is they are, but my guess is they're 4 or 5 overall, and we'll see where the chips fall.
Let's hope. All right. Hey, thank you very much for taking my call. Have a good night, guys.
You too. All right. Ben wants to know starting times. Again, as I've been on here, I've not been able to look this up. So maybe I can pull this up while we're talking. See if I can find anything, if it's been announced. As I do that, let's go ahead and get our next caller on here. Ryan. Mr. Ryan, how you doing, sir?
What's up, man? How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
What you think of Iowa's draw?
I think they got what they deserved.
Is that a positive or a negative?
A negative.
Okay.
I hate to be negative, but I hear a lot of Iowa fans complaining about what, and they did it to themselves,
Well, I mean, what's there to complain? I mean, who's complaining? Are there people complaining?
Well, my brothers are both Iowa fans. They're complaining. They're saying Iowa deserve better. I don't think so.
They got 3 quad 3 losses. They got 19 wins in the season. I think the committee was more than fair. If anything, I would have probably pegged him as a 9, frankly. And they ended up as the last 8. Not that it really matters, but
I mean, 8, 9 is the same.
And honestly, Ryan, I don't know this. Maybe the committee would tell you, hey, if they weren't the last 8, they wouldn't have been. If they weren't the last 8, they would have been a 9 playing somewhere closer to home, or at least not in a road game. This is basically a road game, having to go down to Birmingham and play an Auburn team, home state Auburn team. So I think they got what you said, what they deserved. But heck, like I've said in the past, there have been years where I look at the resume, I look at the draw, and I say, hey, they've got a perfect pathway to the Sweet 16. Like last year when they had Richmond in the first round, a potential matchup with Providence in the second round, and they lose to the Spiders. So maybe this is the year where they bust through.
Yeah, I remember last year. I live in Texas. I went home to see Iowa play, and they laid an absolute egg against Richmond. But I think you're going to see something similar this year. And I'm sorry to be negative, but man, I don't see them doing anything.
I'm just curious. I'm not gonna. You could be right, Ryan. I have no way to prove you wrong. But let's just remember. I know this is you. You're aware of all this, but a year ago, Iowa was riding hot heading into the NCAA tournament.
Sure, they won the Big Ten championship.
They won the Big Ten tournament championship.
Yeah.
Then they lose in the first round. So I understand you're frustrated with, the loss to Nebraska, I'm sure, at home. They got killed at Northwestern, got beat badly at Wisconsin. I shouldn't say get beat badly. They couldn't shoot the 3-ball at Wisconsin. They lose, in the first game against Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. However, last year's success in the Big Ten tournament did not translate to success in March. So I don't know that we can just assume that because they've been struggling here of late that means lack of March success once we hit the NCAAs. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm just saying I would not be surprised to see them make a run.
No, you're right. You're right. But we can't say it doesn't. I mean, like.
You're right. Yeah, we can't prove it either way. Yeah. No, we can't prove it either way. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. And like I said, from a statistical perspective, Auburn defends the 3-ball really well. That's what Iowa struggled to do away from home. Houston defends the 3-ball well. That's what Iowa struggles to do away from home. So if Iowa was going to make it to the Sweet 16, what you just said, Ryan, at the outset of this call is you said, well, they got what they deserve. If they make it to the Sweet 16, they'll have gotten to where they deserve to get because they'll have to earn it to get there. It's not going to be a fluke because I don't see Houston getting beat in the first round. Who do they play? Who does Houston play in the first round? They play Northern Kentucky.
Corey, I'm cheering for Iowa.
Good.
I'm cheering for Iowa. I'm a Hawkeye. I bleed black and gold. But I just am not optimistic. That's all I'm saying.
I understand. I'm not saying I'm optimistic. I'm not, certainly if you had to put a gun in my head right now as it relates to the draw and filling out my bracket, I'm probably not picking Iowa to get to the second weekend. But
yeah,
and
the only point I'm trying to make is that if they would have got a 5 or 6, they could have had a better opportunity to get to the Sweet 16. Sweet 16, because they're sitting at 8-9. You're going to play Houston in the second round. Even if you get past Auburn, that's a tough matchup.
Just remember, they were a 5 seed last year. So
yeah, and they blew it.
Yeah, you're right that sometimes things work in a weird sequence. It would just be like in the crazy college basketball world, Ryan. It would just be like them for this to be the year where they're an 8 seed and they got to play. I think Houston, I said this a couple times already today. I think Houston is, I don't want to say the best team, but I think the surest bet of a 1 seed in this draw. Even though Alabama was the number 1 overall, I think Houston is the toughest out. They're the one team that I looked at and said, I really don't want to face them in the second round. This is what we get.
Well, I live in Houston, like I said, and to me, I've watched a lot of Houston basketball. They're not the best 1 seed, in my opinion. So if Iowa can win that first round game, they can get to the second game. They could possibly beat Houston. Iowa's problem has always been guard play. Iowa's always had shitty guard play.
Tony Perkins. I mean,
he's good. He's good, but
no. I'm agreeing with you. Ryan. He's got to play his best basketball right now. Aaron Eulis has to play his best basketball. Aaron Eulis has been giving them nothing on offense. Nothing. I mean, literally nothing. And he's not even playing 20 minutes.
The last couple games, Connor hasn't been doing great either.
Yeah, I mean, Connor is what he is, right? If he's not making threes, they don't have Luka Garza down low. I mean, Philip Rebracha is solid in the post, and he's going to get you, 15 to 16 a night. But, Connor's ability to feed the post is not nearly as highlighted as it was a couple of years ago. And if Connor's not making threes, he's okay defensively, but got bullied against Ohio State. He is what he is.
Connor's got to distribute.
Yep.
If he's not doing that, then he don't need to be on the floor.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Hey, let me show you something, Corey.
Okay.
This is my Iowa flag.
Okay.
It's upside down.
Okay.
Until Brian Ferentz is gone.
Hey, listen, If they make a Sweet 16, will you turn it on its will you turn it 90 degrees so it's at least close to being upright?
Nope.
Okay.
Brian Ferentz has got to go, and then it goes back up.
What if Gary Barta gets fired? Will you do something then?
No, this is Brian Ferentz.
Okay. All right.
I like your negotiation skills though.
Ryan, I appreciate you calling in, sir, and I appreciate you supporting the show all the way down in Texas.
All right, man. Hey, you got good content, man. I enjoy listening to you, man.
Thank you, sir. Take care and go Hawks.
All right.
Appreciate Ryan calling our show here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Hawkeye Hangout in the call line. Let me see if there's one line open on the phone. So the number actually, I threw it up earlier. I'll throw it up again. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Let's go back to our call line. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Lomansky, Corey, thanks for hosting March Madness show.
Absolutely, Lomansky. How you doing, sir?
Good. I followed, I try to follow a few teams pretty close. Auburn, depending on how you view the conferences, I think the Big 12 is the best conference there is. I think they'll put somebody in the Final Four. I like the Cyclone team. I like Drake. I like where they're at. I hate to like Indiana, but I like the bracket that Indiana has. Auburn won their last two games. I believe they're both ranked teams, but they've had a slide in the second half. They don't have a lot of momentum. Bruce Pearl is an extremely good coach. If you go back in his history, he was like a graduate assistant with Tom Davis at Boston College. So when you look at the history of Tom Davis, he might be overly competitive and got into trouble, but I'm a Bruce Davis fan just because he's proven he can win to different colleges. I think we have I remember for all the Hawk listeners, one of the most, I booked it. I booked a Toledo win with Ronnie Lester and Kenny Arnold and a lot of great players in 1979. And they got upset, I believe, in the first round by the Toledo Rockets. The Toledo Rockets hadn't been the NCAA for like 15 years. And Tom Davis is as great a coach as Lute Olson. And it's a crapshoot. And, Toledo had this stupid mascot that looked like somebody from the Wizard of Oz, like the Tin Man with this 8th grade cone on his head that ran around the court. I tend not to really complain about where we're placed, and let's prove it. Let's hope that Fran's decision to go to the Madison Square Garden and play Duke early in the year pays dividends. I mentioned on your show that it would someday. I hope it does now. I'd like to know what you think about winning the Big Ten tournament with all those games in a row that still shows up in the record book as winning a lot of games and winning the Big Ten tournament. If that wore them out, now they've got rest. So I think these are different circumstances this year. And this team with it's got enough experience, doesn't have enough talent. Some days they do, some days they don't. But they should be pretty calm and traveling and going on the road. I'm not scared of being down in the Southeast. And I'm pretty proud of the boys. I don't know if we have enough talent on the guard court to go a long ways. That's always critical. But I do think we have talent all around, being the third best team in the country in assist to turnover ratio. And if we can get the free throw line, Corey, what's your opinion on what you hear about the whistle being different in the NCAA versus the Big Ten and throws most Big Ten teams out of whack?
That's a good question. I certainly think Gary Close is a better voice on that. I can only judge by what I've seen in recent years, and to me, I see officials in the Big Ten Conference. First of all, I don't think Big Ten officiating is all that good. I don't watch a ton of SEC basketball. I watch some Big 12 basketball living in Ames. Once you get to the tournament, as Gary has brought up in the past, Lomansky, the NCAA is going to pick the best of the best officials, whether they're Big Ten officials or not. if I recall, I could be wrong on this, Lemansky. I think in the first round last year, when Iowa played Richmond, they actually played against a Richmond team that had A-10 officials officiating that game. Am I correct in saying that, Lemansky? Do you remember this?
I don't remember.
But they're all officiated differently. I think we understand that. And the Big Ten is known for being more physical. I think once you get to March, you do wonder. First of all, the Big Ten, there is that narrative out there. The Big Ten has worn itself down and cannibalized itself. I think there's probably a little bit of truth to that, given how the conference is officiated and just the style of play in this conference. And once you get to the Big Ten tournament, things are officiated perhaps a little bit more tightly. I think it can throw everybody off. You'd think that would favor Iowa because of how Iowa plays. Iowa's more of the finesse shooter type of offense that lives and dies off of points or on points. But at the same time, I would think that it'd be hard to adjust to when you just got done playing 20 games in your conference where things are officiated a certain way. So I don't have the answer to your question. I hope it'll be a breath of fresh air because I don't think this conference season has been officiated very well. But I also remember having some pretty strong complaints about how Iowa's game in Buffalo was officiated last March.
I'm going to think Rebracha is going to have a breakout game. I think with his history, how far he's come with coming from a smaller school and getting better, I think if he can do some damage inside and we can kick out for threes and we can have a good three ball, I think we got a good shot to win that first round game. I think Fran's as good as coach as Auburn has. So I'm optimistic. I'm going to go the other way, and I have my reasons for it. Auburn had a hot start, even though they won their last two games. They don't have one of their better seasons. They've only won one more game than Iowa. Bruce Pearl is a 3-time SEC Coach of the Year, and he's been to the Final Four. But Iowa has a rich tradition, too. And watching ESPN while I've been on hold, those sort of experts hold Iowa in high regard in scoring the ball. We've been inconsistent, most Iowa fans know, but you got to play where you're dealt. And when Iowa beat Georgetown to go to the Final Four, nobody gave Iowa a chance. Ronnie Lester was hurt most of the year. So I'll get off the line unless you've got something for me, Corey, and thanks for holding your show on March Madness Sunday.
I appreciate it, Lemansky, and thank you for hanging on the line. And by the way, Taylor Hink in our chat, let me find his comment here. Iowa plays at 5:50 Central Time on Thursday. Maybe that's true. I haven't been able to confirm that. I did get an email from the University of Iowa that said they will announce that tonight. Tony's giving me the thumbs up in the queue. So T. Hink, I believe that's Taylor Hink. Thank you for that. Sounds like a 5:50 tip. And when we come back, we're going to get to our next couple of callers. I think the plan for now, folks, because we're 4 minutes to 7, the plan for now is we're going to stay on live during the women's selection show. All right, so hang tight. The phone line is back open. The number on the bottom of the screen here, let me throw it up there, 515-635-1601. You can also join by means of the StreamYard link. I'm jumping on here fresh, right out of the gates, jumping on here to give my reaction to the Iowa-Auburn matchup and take your reaction as well. So I have not done a deep dive into the Tigers. So once I do that, hopefully we'll get the plan is to get Coach Close on for a pregame show or a preview show, I should say, sometime this week. So I'll have more of a deep dive into this opponent. But as far as the draw is concerned, I've expressed some concern, but at the same time, the tournament is crazy. And just when you think you have things figured out and you have your bracket figured out because of the draw, someone pulls a huge upset that affects everything. So you just never know. Again, the Hawkeyes will face the 9-seed Auburn Tigers in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And when we come back here, more of your calls as we break down March Madness, and we'll start to talk about the women. They're going to be getting their assignment in their first round assignment here momentarily. You're watching Hawkeye Hangout. We'll be back after a brief word from our sponsor. Straight from the man cave, Kinnick under the kitchen, authentic, original player art prints are being drawn up for Hawkeye fans everywhere. From Under the Kitchen's Murray Legacy print, which features former Hawkeye Kenyon Murray, current Hawkeye Chris Murray, and current Sacramento King Keegan Murray, to football players Lucas Van Ness, Torrey Taylor, and Cooper DeJean, to wrestlers Tony Cassiope, Alex Marinelli, and Real Woods. Oh, and only one of the greatest athletes to ever compete at Iowa, Spencer Lee. There are so many options available, and they make great gifts. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook or at Under the Kitchen's new website. It's underthekitchen.square.site. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. Welcome to Iowa Floor Covering, a locally owned flooring store in Bondurant, Iowa that specializes in do-it-yourself projects. If you're a contractor or a DIYer, Iowa Floor Covering has your back. Right now at Iowa Floor Covering, get tough core click-together 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring for $269 per foot when you install it yourself. That's a much better value than you'll find at any of the big box stores. Looking for other types of flooring? They can help with that too. Between their exceptional product knowledge and commitment to customer service, the guys at Iowa Floor Covering will provide everything you need to complete your DIY flooring project. So what are you waiting for? Skip the box stores now and visit iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. That's iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. Promotional pricing only available with self-installation. So appreciate Iowa Floor Covering and Under the Kitchen. Great artwork. Randy Engel doing great stuff down in Bondurant. Check out your Hawkeye prints. And don't forget, folks, I know it's the off season and it can be hard to think about supporting sponsors for shows like this. Maybe you don't consume as much Hawkeye content during the off season. I get it. But don't forget to support our sponsors during the off season because they're the ones supporting the show during the off season and during the season. So please consider supporting Under the Kitchen. Certainly Iowa Floor Covering and their great deals on flooring, including DIY flooring down in Bondurant. And of course, Rick, thank you for reminding everybody to hit the thumbs up. It really does help. All right, folks, the phone line is open, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601, as we await the women's selection as the announcements are coming here. And I'll give you live breakdown. If you don't have ESPN going on in the background, I'm encouraging you to stick right here with me because I'll give you, again, I'll give it to you as soon as it's released here on ESPN. The Hawkeyes expected to potentially be a number one seed following their Big Ten tournament championship. And certainly the Caitlin Clark effect will help. You have to think that helps in seeding. I know that maybe that sounds almost unfair, but the reality is the committee, I would think, wants to seed the most electric players, most electric teams, the teams that are going to create the most buzz and seed them as high as possible. So we'll continue to give you updates as we get the women's draw in. Let's go to our phone line. Let's go to James, who's been waiting on hold for a long time. James, welcome to the show.
How you doing? I got ESPN in the background, so it might be a little loud, but I'm trying to make sure I can hear it. But first thing I want to say is I understand they do it bracket-wise, right? Or they do it like ranking-wise, like 33, 34, 35. I understand they do it that way, but I definitely would have liked to switch places with Arkansas in Illinois game. Arkansas can go play in Birmingham. We can go play in Des Moines. I think that'd be maybe not fair to us as much, but I just felt like that'd been a little bit more fair because I feel like it gives them nobody really a home game as much. You get Arkansas a little bit more of a home game, but it's still not like a home game. Auburn's
well, then you got it. But am I correct in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't you have Illinois fans complaining at that point for having to go to Birmingham?
They're the lower seed. They're the 9. Arkansas's the 8. They're the 9.
All right, let me look at what you're talking about here.
Arkansas is the 8. They're the 9. We're the 8, and Auburn's the 9. So I think it would have been better if they would have swapped us. I understand they do it off.
Okay. I can see what you're so in other words, you're saying you would have preferred because it sounds like Houston was going to be in Birmingham no matter what.
Yeah. Obviously Kansas is tough, but I'm saying I thought that's usually the way they do it. It's usually the higher seed gets closer, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, I just don't think that's my guess is that's not the priority from the committee. The priority from the committee is making sure.
I also would have liked that so if you didn't know, Texas A&M is my second favorite school overall. So I would have liked that as a Texas A&M fan too, because they both have been playing in Des Moines. That'd been cool to me. But I understand you do what you do. The one thing that scares me, and I said this earlier, they defend one of the best defending threes in the nation. Auburn is 5th. They have hold opponents to 28.8% from 3-point line. So that's kind of scary. I don't know what we're gonna do there. And then Houston, obviously, one of the best 3-point defenses in the nation too. So it's tough when you live and die by a 3, and you can't really stop anybody. It makes it tough when you have to play a team like that for sure. And I don't think really any of the Iowa teams got a great draw. Maybe Iowa State, but I think if Iowa State has to play Pitt, I think that's going to be a dogfight. If they have to play Mississippi State, I think they're better.
What's your problem with Drake's draw?
I think Miami's the best. To me, I think Miami's the best 5 seed. I think they could have got better. Maybe is Duke a 5 seed? Duke and Miami were the 2 best 5 seeds. They could have, if they got the other 2, I think they're better. I just think Miami's good. I think people underestimate Miami.
Duke's a 5 seed.
So then Duke would be the best, but then I think Miami's the second best. I think Miami's really good. Remember last year they made the run, and I think they're better this year than that team last year made the run.
I'm trying to find the other 5. The other 5, St. Mary's. I mean, you're I understand I mean, you got San Diego State and St. Mary's, a couple of West Coast teams as the other 2 5s, but I mean, heck, St. Mary's is 26-7. San Diego State's 27-6. Look really good towards the end of the year. So that's fair. I mean, Miami obviously has experience. They made it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. By the way, just confirmed. Anybody's not watching it, South Carolina is your overall number 1.
I think we all knew that, though.
Yeah, we all knew that. I don't mind Drake's spot there. I do think that whoever gets out of that section is going to have a difficult, assuming Houston advances. I really do think Houston. I will be surprised if Houston doesn't make it to at least the Elite Eight. I know people are. We had our caller from Houston earlier that said he doesn't believe in the Cougars. I've said that before, and they're just so well coached. They play, and we talked about the importance of playing defense in this tournament. Now, with that being said, James, I'll be rooting severely for Northern Kentucky. Right? Are they the North?
Yeah, am I correct? Yeah, the North. I had some. Connor McCaffrey's teammate was playing there. Sabian Sims, he was playing there. He played there last year, so he's from Iowa City. He don't play there no more, but he played there last year, so I kind of had a little bit good for that. And one thing too, what do you think Iowa State's draw? So obviously, I think if they get Mississippi State, I think they're gonna probably win either way. But I think Pitt's tougher than people think. That's an 11.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a ton of Pitt basketball. I know they were picked 14th in the ACC. You give Capel a lot of credit. I really haven't watched Pitt basketball this year. I haven't watched much of Mississippi State either. I will say this: the only thing that came to my mind when I saw Iowa State's draw as a 6 seed playing in 11, I guess I could. Since we're talking about it, why don't I just share my screen up here, folks? Apologize for this.
Is my TV too loud? My bad. I can turn it down a bit if you need me to.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Let me pull the bracket here. So the only reaction I had when I saw Iowa State taking on the winner of Mississippi State Pitt is I do think at time, I could be totally off on this. We saw Tennessee make a run out of the first 4 a few years back. In fact, when they beat Iowa, they made a run from the first 4 on, I believe, the Sweet 16. But I would just think it's hard to prep. If you're Iowa State as a 6 seed, you're thinking, man, we're a 6 seed and we don't even know who we're playing.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at you go to the other side of the draw, you look at Creighton, they know they're playing the 11 seed North Carolina State, who, by the way, I don't think is very good. And they have how many days to prepare? Now, with that being said, Mississippi State Pitt also don't have much time to prepare for Iowa State. They got to prepare for the other team.
But I mean,
so I understand that kind of evens the playing field, but it's a difficult prep for the Cyclones.
But I feel like if I was an 11, I feel like, I mean, I'm a high school basketball coach, so I kind of understand the whole scouting part. But I feel like, first off, Maryland got the 2 in the other half, so obviously Iowa. So that might be I don't know what that means for Iowa, but they got the 2 in the first side for the women. But I feel like it's a little bit easier for the 11 to scout because they know one opponent they're going to play, no matter what. So, like, even if you're Mississippi State or even if you're Pitt, you can still scout for Iowa State. You know what I mean? Iowa State still has to scout for both.
Right. True.
So, like, it's kind of tough in that retrospect.
But that's why you have 3 full-time assistants and a head coach. I mean, they've got the personnel to do it, but I do think it makes things a little bit more tricky.
For sure. And I thought it was weird that they put – I understand Midwest. I thought it was weird that they put all the Iowa teams in the same. in the same one, but I think it's a little cool too, for us Iowa fans. I agree with you on Creighton. I think Creighton can make a run for sure, but for me at least, I think my favorite, and I think it's just because you have an Iowa guy on the team, is probably UCLA. Hope UCLA wins it all if Iowa can't, obviously. So for me, it's just would be cool to see Tiger Campbell. I don't know if you know, he's from Cedar Rapids, so
Yeah, I'm
it'd be
intrigued
cool.
by Tiger Campbell.
It'd be cool to see him get. It'd be cool to see him get one just because he's from Cedar Rapids, and I think to me it's more about anything. What do you think? Like, obviously, if we could beat Houston, I think this is the year where it's going to be the toughest for us to get to the Sweet 16. But I'm not saying there's not a chance. I just think this is definitely going to be the toughest for us to get to the Sweet 16.
Well, again, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Just by looking at the draw, I would think that. But at the same time, there have been plenty of times when I've said, "Hey, Iowa's got a good draw," and then doesn't matter. They don't make it anyways. So I don't know. It's all about matchups, and the only thing I know about these first two opponents is what I said earlier. They defend the three really well. They play physical basketball. Obviously, you get the Bruce Pearl connection. They're both really well coached. Auburn's going to be playing a de facto home game. Although I thought the comment earlier by one of our viewers, and I don't have it up on the screen, but the comment earlier by one of our viewers is interesting. It will be interesting to see how many Alabama fans are at the Iowa-Auburn game. And
they might be rooting for Iowa.
They might be rooting for Iowa. Exactly. Yeah. Great point. Our listener who put that in the chat earlier, I think that's a great point. I don't know if it'll make a huge difference, but with what Alabama's done at the overall number 1 seed, they're going to buy most of those tickets, right? I mean, I would think they're going to be buying every ticket they can find. That's a passionate fan base. I understand it's a football school, but I would be surprised if it's not. I mean, playing Alabama in the second round would be a lot more difficult than playing Auburn in the first round. Even though I think Alabama as a team might be more vulnerable. So anyways, I know I'm kind of going on a tangent there, but I will be interested to see the layout, how many fans are actually rooting for Iowa in that game.
True that.
Let's be honest, Birmingham's not that far. I mean, how far is Birmingham from Iowa City?
10 hours.
It's not that bad. I mean, 10 hours.
But, I mean, it's 59 minutes away from Auburn. I think that's the.
Yeah, I understand.
But for me, it's like, what do you think the girls are going to get? I think they should be a 1, but I don't know.
Well, we just got the first regional, the Greenville regional. We got South Carolina 1, Maryland 2, Notre Dame 3, UCLA 4. I don't think anybody thought Maryland was going to be a 1. So
yeah, for sure, I didn't think they were going to be a 1. I think it's Indiana. I think if you see Indiana as a 2, then I think that's where Iowa will be a 1. I think that will kind of tell you the ultimate thing. But I think it'd be interesting either way. And yeah, they're right. It is 5:15 on Friday, so be interesting, or Thursday, whatever day. But it's interesting. Hopefully, we can pull one off, and it's gonna be tough. And it's hard because teams play physical, and it kind of seems like we melt sometimes, or we just buck under pressure. But it was cool to see Owen Freeman and Brock Harding win their first ever state championship for Moline High School. That was cool. And you see what they did after the game, where they had these shirts, and they're like Hawks and Champagne. I was like, that's just cool, Indiana got a 1, so my guess is Iowa's a 2.
Yep, Indiana is the second one announced. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but doesn't that all but seal it for Iowa to be a 2? I mean, I don't, and that's fine. But by the way, I don't think it really matters that much. Does it really matter? They're going to be on the opposite side. Well, they might be on the opposite side of Indiana.
I think it depends on who the 1 is in your bracket. You know what I'm saying?
If I'm assuming Indiana's the final 1 seed to get in. We're talking about the women now, folks. Indiana's likely the final 1 seed to get in, even though they're the second 1 seed announced. I have it on mute, so I'm assuming they're not giving true seeds, James, as I'm talking about this. But if they're the final if they're the 4th number 1 seed, I would assume that Iowa, if they're the number 1-2 seed, would be in this section. So we'll see. We're going to find out here in a minute whether Iowa's in this section. But if they are, that would potentially be a potential Indiana-Iowa
Elite 8
matchup in the Greenville Regional 2.
Yeah, and I don't. To me, I mean, obviously, I get why Indiana was the best team in the Big Ten for the women's side. They did kind of lay an egg in the tournament. But do you think if Iowa would have won a couple games in the tournament, do you think there would have been a 7? Because I didn't think that. To be honest, I thought they were going to be a 10. I thought they'd be a 10 because they laid eggs on a lot of games, had 3 quad 4 losses. So I thought they'd be a 10. So you think if they would have won a couple games, they might have had a chance to hop to 7 or not, since they were the lowest 8?
I don't know. I think there's a possibility, and begin work going back to the men for a second. I do think there's a possibility they could have gotten to a 7. I'm not a bracketologist, but I remember saying after the Nebraska loss, hey, this guarantees they're not a 6. I think that was safe to say, but I didn't dismiss the idea of them potentially being a 7. So I would not have been shocked if they had been a 7. With that being said, you're right. They were the last 8 seed. We didn't see the committee do a whole bunch of moving for Penn State, despite what they did this week. I mean, heck, they almost came back and won that game today against Purdue. So I think the committee, in large part, it would have been, Iowa would have probably had to made Sunday to get to the 7 line. I really don't know that it makes as big of a difference as we made it out to last year. I think saw that because remember we talked about Iowa potentially moving up to a 4 seed last year. They won the tournament and still were stuck at a 5.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. Hopefully, Rutgers can win as the 1 seed in the NIT. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be rooting for them hard in the NIT because they were one of the first 4 out, so they're going to be a 1 seed in the NIT. And I think it's unfortunate because obviously you want to see as many Big Ten teams as you can get in. But that loss to Minnesota really, I think, hurt them. They might have been if they didn't lose that game.
Yeah, like I said, the committee is basically saying by putting North Carolina State in over a team like Rutgers, they're basically saying, hey, we care more about you not losing to bad teams than we care about you beating good teams. That's basically what the committee said.
And Rutgers probably had you went over it, but they had 3 or 4 quad 1 wins.
Rutgers had, first of all, they were higher in the net. All right. They were 5 spots higher in the net than NC State. Rutgers had 4 quad 1 wins and 6 quad 2 wins, but they had 4 quad 3 losses. Whereas NC State had 0 quad 3 and 4 losses, but just 1 quad 1 win. They did have 7 quad 2 wins, but 1 quad 1 win.
For sure. And I think I understand that, but I don't know. I think Nevada or Arizona State's resume is way their net rating was 60 something, and Rutgers was 40 something. So to me, that was kind of surprising. Where I was like,
by the way, real quick, James, Drill MVP says he thinks Iowa and Indiana can both be a 1 seed. So. I don't follow the women's bracketology nearly as much as the men's, so I don't know if he's a Drill MVP. You're welcome to call in, but
they gave LSU a 3 seed, so I don't know if LSU was on the 2 seed line or fighting for the 2 seed line or not. But they gave LSU a 3 seed, so
Michigan is the 6th in that Greenville region. 2.
I think if we're 2, I think this would be the 1 because I would think Indiana would be the worst 1 seed. I didn't hear them say it, but
not knowing much about the Rebels, Michigan, the 6th seed Michigan will play UNLV. That's 21-2.
You mean 31-2? You said 21.
31-2. UNLV is 31-2, and they're an 11 seed. That's again without knowing anything about the Rebels. That looks like a dangerous game for
Iowa's not the 2.
I'm sorry.
Utah's the 2 in that half.
You're ahead of me by about 5
My
seconds.
My bad.
Utah, you're good. You're good. Utah's the 2 seed, folks, in the Greenville Regional 2 for the women. They'll play Gardner Webb and Salt Lake City on Friday. So the women are not in the first 2 regions. They're not going to be a 3. They'll be either a 1 or a 2. So far, your number 1 seeds are South Carolina and Indiana. In your number 2 seeds in those 2 regions, or I should say that in those 2 regionals are Maryland and Utah, and now we await news on who are we missing here? Virginia Tech, Iowa, Stanford.
Yeah.
And is there one more that would be in the conversation? I'm trying to think back.
I really think it's just those 3. I think Maryland was the other one, but Maryland already got it too. So
yeah, Maryland would be the other one. So yeah, maybe Drill MVP's right. Like I said, I would think Stanford's a 1.
When does it change? So it's only first 2 rounds that are home for women, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so they beat Iowa City that in the round 32. So,
right.
I mean, they were around 32 last year and they lost to Creighton. But it'll be interesting to see, and I'll let you get to other callers. But hopefully we can get a 1 seed here, and hopefully we can make a little run for the women at least. And they deserve it for sure. They worked hard. Monica definitely deserves it. She's been there for how long? She's been there through a lot. So hopefully we can get 2 seed for them, and it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully we can pull off at least 1 win. 2 wins would be nice, but you never know with the March Madness. The price called March Madness because it's madness.
By the way, James, this is what I get for having the volume turned down. Drill VP says Indiana was the number 2 overall team.
That's kind of weird.
Isn't that weird? That is
I don't know.
strange.
I thought they'd be the 4th number 1 seed because for me, it's
I didn't
like
think it'd be a number 1. I don't think it'd be a number 1. I thought
I
maybe
agree
it'd
with
be
you.
a number 2.
I agree with you, and I don't understand how. To be honest with you, I thought Virginia Tech was better than them at least. To me, I thought it was going to be between Iowa, Stanford, and Indiana for that last one because I thought Virginia Tech was better than Indiana, but I don't know. Maybe they took the regular season into a little bit more consideration when it comes to that, I guess. But
well, again, we go back to the men's committee. Perhaps we put too much emphasis on we as fans put too much emphasis on conference tournaments, and Indiana bowed out and didn't make the finals of the conference tournament. Got beat, but Iowa wins the conference tournament, beats Ohio State, but perhaps that's not the committee's going to look more so. I mean, Iowa, of course, won on a buzzer beater against Indiana. I'm not saying you look strictly at matchups, but they win on a buzzer beater against Indiana to end the regular season. Got beat somewhat handily at Indiana earlier in the year. So if you're looking at matchups and head-to-head, perhaps that's what the committee would look at to compare those two teams.
what do you think, like, I remember that, it was like, what do you think if we're the 1 seed? Who's our only, my bad. My last question was, I didn't watch as many women's games, so do they have bad loss at all? Because I know they lost to UConn. Yeah, the women. I know they lost to UConn. Did they lose to Oregon State?
They beat Oregon State. They lost to Kansas State on the road. That's not a bad loss. They lost to North Carolina State at home.
That's
home
not
loss
bad either.
North Carolina State's good. They lost. Didn't they lose to Purdue or Illinois?
They lost to UConn. I know. Then they lost to Maryland and Indiana. How many losses do we have? We might have lost one more. But I just didn't know if they had any bad losses or quad 3, quad 4 losses, they would say.
Good question. I'm looking at the schedule here. So, again, UConn, North Carolina State, I said those two. Illinois, they lost on the road. Illinois is in the tournament. That's a road loss, not a bad loss. They lost at Indiana, of course, and then they lost at Maryland. So, no bad losses for the Iowa women.
So that's going to help them, I think, maybe with their 1 seed possibility. But it'll be interesting to see, and I'll be here whenever at Thursday. And are you doing one after the girls' game too, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and I'll be here after that. I don't know how it works because sometimes the girls' games aren't on TV all the time. They kind of do weird where they bounce back and forth the coverage. It gets a little bit annoying sometimes, but
what are you talking about?
The girls March Madness. Sometimes they don't like show. They bounce back and forth. They bounce back and forth sometimes. At least last year they did. I don't know. Maybe that's because the game was a blowout I was watching, or.
Okay, I would fully expect, unless there is a blowout, maybe they don't. Given Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. They'll probably saw that whole game though, because that's money in their pocket.
Exactly. Yep.
But
James.
Enjoy your night. Thank you for the show, and it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully, we can get one out. And Bruce Pearl, being an Iowa guy, we always love our Iowa guys, so gotta respect him.
Thank you, James. Appreciate the call, sir. All right, folks, we're rolling along here. We've got Tony on hold. We've got someone on our call line. Thank you.
From Battle Creek, Michigan. How are you?
Coach Greg Williams from Battle Creek, Michigan. How are you, sir?
Good. I just wanted to say it's always a good time in March, and congratulations to the men's and women's basketball team on making the NCAA tournament. And as I said, you gotta be in it to win it. So go Hawks!
Absolutely. And I'm curious, Coach, how much you've been able to watch of the two sons of your former player, Kenyon Murray. Of course, Keegan doing great things with the Kings so far, and Chris making first team All Big Ten. How much have you been able to watch each of those guys?
I've actually planned quite a bit. I went to Cleveland to watch Keegan. Then I was going to go to Milwaukee. Had to cancel that one. I saw him in Indianapolis. I was going to Detroit, obviously, because that's right down the road from us. But my grandson played for Ferris State University Division II football team. They were in Texas playing for the national championship, which they won. So I missed going there. Then I planned another trip when I was coming out, and I was going to watch McKenna play. And then I was going to go up to Minnesota and watch Keegan play, come back to Iowa and watch Chris play that weekend. And we had planned it and had a big snowstorm. So I missed that. But I did make it to see McKenna first game in Des Moines. Keegan flew in. So I sat with him during her game. Next day we were in Northwestern, which was not a good day, but it was always good to see the family. But so I did see the Northwestern game, and I just was at the Big Ten tournament game, which a guy came up to me and gave me a big bear hug. A guy you might know, Gary Close. So I caught up with Gary.
That's awesome.
And so it's been fun. I try to get as many games as I can. Obviously, I follow them very closely and follow the Hawkeyes. And being a former coach, it's just a great time to be in any tournament anywhere, still being able to play at this time. And obviously, you just got to be good for one night at a time. And that's why I say just go Hawks. They're in it. And I know everybody has their opinion, but again, I know all those teams are preparing and preparing to win a ball game and to win a tournament. So it's an exciting time, and I always enjoy March.
Absolutely, Greg. And we hope to hear from you. I don't know if we're going to get Kenyon on this week or not. I'd love to. If we somehow get Kenyon on, please call in if you can. We'd love to hear from you.
I definitely will. Again, I've been listening to you and Gary after games. I just haven't been able to call in, and I'm still working a little part-time job just to have something to do as a retiree. They keep wanting me to get back into coaching, but I'm not doing that. But I still have a few players that are still playing, and a few of them are playing overseas, and one's just playing for a new professional team. They just started in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I stay busy. It's fun, and I always enjoy listening to you and Gary. You guys do such a great job. I really enjoy listening to you and Coach. And again, I just want to call in and say congratulations to the men's and women's team on making the NCAA tournament, and go Hawks.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you soon, Greg.
All right. Take care, Corey.
Take care. Bye-bye. Always love hearing from Coach Greg Williams, Kenyon Murray's high school coach, who's enjoying retirement and rooting on the Hawkeyes. By the way, the Seattle Regional 3 is out, and Virginia Tech is your 1 seed, folks. So we're waiting to see who the 2 seed is in this section. But so far, we've got 3 1 seeds named, not one of them being Iowa, Indiana, South Carolina, not in order here, but Indiana, South Carolina, and now Virginia Tech. So I'm assuming that last 1 seed comes down to Iowa and Stanford. Iowa State is the 5 seed in that section. They'll play Toledo, 28-4 Toledo, the Cyclones Big 12 champions. Again, they'll play Saturday down in Knoxville, Tennessee. Good year for Ashley Jones. She Big 12 Player of the Year, I believe, won that again. So congratulations to Ashley. Ryan says that Iowa plays 5:50 p.m. on TNT Thursday. I'll trust you, Ryan. Can't validate that. I'm going to trust you on that. I like the time. I don't like those day games, Ryan. So I'm happy about that. I think this is Coach. Appreciate that, Coach. Appreciate the message and the kind words, and certainly the phone call, as always. Ohio State is your 3 seed in the Seattle Regional 3. We're talking about the women now, folks. Ohio State, as an at-large, gets in after making the Big Ten Tournament Championship game. And they'll play James Madison in the first round in Columbus. So they'll play at home. They'll get those first 2 games at home, as the higher seeds do. And they'll play Saturday against Sunbelt champion James Madison. Lemansky, appreciate the super chat, Lemansky. He says, if memory serves, the late, great Christine Grant hired Lisa Bluter, not Gary Barta. Thanks, Christine Grant. Well, where did that come from? Did somebody bring up Gary Barta and his track record? Thank you for this, Lemansky. Appreciate the super chat. By the way, just so everybody's aware, North Carolina will play in Columbus against the winner of Purdue and St. John's on Saturday. So Purdue St. John's playing game, the 11 seed game. And again, North Carolina, the 6th seed in that section. We're still waiting to get Iowa's placement in this tournament. Again, either the last 1 seed or they're going to be one of the final two seeds. And we'll get our 2 seed reveal, I believe, here. And the 2 seed in the Seattle Regional 3 is UConn. The Huskies, who beat the Hawkeyes earlier in the year, finished the season 29-5. They'll take on Vermont, 25-6 Vermont. Home game for the Huskies. They'll play Vermont on Saturday. It's going to be a fun few days, folks. Man, this is a great time of year for college basketball, isn't it? And we're getting the final matchup in the Seattle Regional 3. It's number 7 Baylor taking on 10 seed Alabama. 2 at-large teams from Power 5 conferences. They'll play in Connecticut in a 7-10 game. The winner likely will play UConn. So we wait the final section here, folks. The final regional. And we'll see if Iowa is either the final 2 seed or the final 1 seed. The Hawkeyes still having not heard their name called. So we shall see, as ESPN highlights. Yes, the 2 teams, Stanford and Iowa, those 2 teams. The bottom line, folks, I don't really know that it matters that much. Iowa's going to be playing the first 2 games at home. Stanford will play the first 2 games at home. Those 2 teams are obviously going to be facing each other in the Elite 8 if they both take care of business. Somebody explain to me why it matters. Now that we know the rest of the draw, I don't really know that it matters who the 1 seed is and who the 2 seed is. Lemansky's a Lisa Bluter fan. We know that. We can see that. James wants to know what happens if Iowa plays Drake round 1. Well, they can't, James, because they played them in the regular season. So unless I'm missing something, they cannot face them round 1. All right, let's go to our next caller. We're going to put our phone line caller on hold for a moment. Let's go to Tony. Tony.
How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. I've got some breaking news here. North Carolina is not, I repeat, is not going to accept an NIT invite.
North Carolina's not, and I believe, am I right in saying Texas Tech already said they're not?
I did not know that. I didn't look. I just
with
saw
Mark Adams stepping away, I believe Texas Tech is bowing out. So yeah, it's going to be. So why did North Carolina not accept an NIT invite?
They do you care if I read you the quote? I got it pulled up.
Sure.
They actually have a quote. Okay.
Sure.
The quote says, "All season, our focus and goal has been on being the best team we can possibly become and reaching our full potential to give us as another opportunity to compete and play and win for an NCAA championship. Although we no longer have that opportunity and this season wasn't what we had hoped for, I want to thank our players and staff for their hard work and love for Carolina basketball. Many factors go into postseason play, and we believe now is the time to focus on moving ahead, preparing for next season, and the opportunity to again compete for an ACC and NCAA championships. I also want to thank our great fans for their incredible support. The commitment to you is what drives us to improve our program in every way. Hubert Davis."
That's a disgrace.
Yeah.
That's a disgrace.
No, yeah. No, I agree.
I think it's a disgrace to the game. I think it's a disgrace to those players. Now, maybe the players don't want to play in the NIT. Well, actually, what am I thinking? Of course, those players want to play. Don't tell me they don't want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want to play, if there's players on that team, Tony, that don't want to play in the NIT, then they shouldn't be playing. They should. If I was Hubert Davis, I'd be saying, "We don't want you. If you're not here, if you're not all in, we don't want you." That is a ridiculous statement and a ridiculous stance for that program. I'm sorry.
Who was the Northwestern transfer that transferred there?
Pete Nance.
And he was a graduate, right? He was a graduate.
Maybe he's got 1 year, but I think he's done.
Yeah, imagine him.
That is disgraceful. I yeah, anyways, we'll talk about it. I'd like to get Coach Close's perspective on
Let me move on to a little light.
Real quick.
Oh, go ahead. No. Yeah.
Stanford is your final number 1, folks. So Iowa will be the 2, like it or not. I don't really think I don't think it really matters, folks. I don't think it really matters. Steve says Iowa deserves the top seed. They have the best player in the country, should be awarded. I get that. I'm not arguing with you. I think you're right. However, not to be. And Stanford, the 1 seed, will play the winner of Southern and Sacred Heart. Stanford did not win their conference tournament, Tony. Who won the Pac-12 tournament this week? Do you know?
I'm sorry, I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest. The only thing that's crazy to me that I just wanted to say is in the women's, there's 2 Seattle regionals.
Well, there's also aren't there 2 Greenville regionals?
Was it? I didn't know. I'm sorry, I didn't saw the first part. The first
Yeah,
2.
there's 2
So,
Greenville, and
well,
I see some people in the
thanks.
chat kind of upset here. Again, I don't think it matters, people. And if you
It does.
honestly would you rather be? And they're going to be the hunted no matter what as a 2 seed. But wouldn't you rather be like when you get to that Elite 8 game, Tony? Wouldn't you rather be the 2 seed playing the 1 seed? I know I would. They're not playing on the road. They're going to be playing on a neutral court regardless. They're going to be playing in Seattle regardless. Texas, real quick. Texas is your 4th seed. They'll play on Saturday against the 13th seed East Carolina down in Austin. So they will be part of Iowa's draw as well. And now we get to see who the 3 and the 2 seed is or are on that draw, on that side of the draw.
Well, Iowa's the 2 seed.
Iowa's the 2 seed, right? Well, we haven't gotten that confirmed, but we're assuming yes, they should be the 2 seed. But we'll see. Again, we could do the math on who the 3 seed is. I don't have all the numbers in front of me. I'm sure somebody could tell me who the 3 seed is without having to wait for this. But I mean, again, Stanford. I figured Stanford was almost a lock. I know they didn't win their conference tournament, but by the way, Drake is your 12 in that section, so they'll play number 5 Louisville down at the home of the Longhorns down in Austin. So. Congratulations to the Drake Bulldogs at 22-9. So they are in Iowa's section. And you see Drake with the Valley Trophy again. Boy, what a year for Drake, men and women, Tony. Impressive. And again, a lot of people picked Belmont to win that women's title prior to the season starting. Duke is your number 3. So Duke is your 3. They'll play the Gales of Iona at 26-6. Iowa, let's see. Iowa played Duke, was it last year, and lost to the Blue Devils. So again, Duke is your 3. They'll play in Durham against the Gales. And then your 6th seed in Durham is Colorado. They'll take on Middle Tennessee at 28-4 on Saturday. This is Iowa's going to be the second to last team. Or no, they'll be the last team called. They're going to be the
second. The 15 will be the last. The 15 will be the last.
Think about that. That's crazy. You
still there?
Yeah, I know we got some.
Oh, sorry. You just had some. I didn't want awkward dead air. I was like, wait a second. What?
All right. The Hawks will play Southeast Louisiana. SELA, also known as the team that had that assistant coach that went after Joe Toussaint and Connor McCaffrey last year on the men's side. I'm not going to trash the women's team, but you remember that, don't you? The one that the coach or manager, whatever he was, that called Connor McCaffrey a freak. So the women's team will play Iowa Friday in Iowa City. Which is good, by the way, because they'll be offsetting Iowa, the men, right? Am I correct in saying that? They'll be offsetting the men.
Yeah, because the men are Thursday. The men are Thursday.
That's perfect. Yeah. And also in Iowa City, Florida State, the 7 seed, taking on the 10 seed Georgia. So a couple of teams from the Deep South will play in Iowa City on Friday. Florida State at 23-9, Georgia at 21-11. So the Hawkeyes will likely play, if they can get back by SELA, they'll play the winner of they will play the winner of the Seminoles and the Bulldogs, and don't know a whole lot about either one of those teams. Would be interested. I think we've got Drill MVP waiting on the other line. Maybe we can get him in on here as well. But he, as an SEC fan, might be able to give us some perspective on Georgia. But I at first glance, I don't hate that draw, but it's easy to say that when you're a 2 seed. And like I said, I don't know the real difference. I mean, the matchup wise, you're going to get different matchups to get to the Elite 8, Tony. But for the most part, you're going to have to play the 1 seed's going to have to play that 2 seed. The 2 seed's going to have to play that 1 seed if we're going to get to the Final Four.
The one nice thing will be is I hear you guys got some of that white stuff on the ground here because I'm up in Sioux Falls. Is that going to be a culture shock for those Florida State and Georgia kids?
Well, they're not playing outside, Tony.
I know, but they've got to pass through it, and that might get in their head. I'm just trying to think of every advantage I can get, Corey.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You
I had a list of things I was trying to get
outside, but you're right. There might be a bit of a culture shock when they see the snow on the ground.
You said you wanted to interview a committee member Do you know there's an NCAA tournament men's committee member in Ames, Iowa? He goes by the name of Jamie Pollard. He was on this year's committee.
Was he
If
really?
you want to interview, if you want to interview one, just take
That's
a short.
Actually, that's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. So
I don't know if you know him or how well you know him or anything.
I've never
know him at all.
I do not know him. I've never seen him. You know, you run into people around town, Tony. I've never ran into Jamie Pollard around town. I know a lot of people who have, but I never have. So never had a conversation with the guy. Wouldn't have any. I think he's good AD. I think he's a good advocate for that university. I think he's a good AD.
Another thing that I'm shocked I'm the first person to bring this up. Everyone keeps saying, ask Coach Close about Bruce Pearl. Ask Coach Close about Bruce Pearl. Why don't we ask Matt Gatens? Matt Gatens was on Bruce Pearl's staff in, I think it was 16-17 or 17-18.
Great point.
Do you think he knows every little in and out about Bruce? I mean, he might know a few things.
He knows. Yeah, he gonna know a little bit. If Gary Close doesn't know, I mean, Gary Close is gonna know something. You're right. Matt Gatens will know something. I'm trying to think of other connections that they would have. See, Kirk Spurraw. Obviously, I know he's not on the staff now, but he's still, he's still in Iowa City. He's still part of the games. He played at Iowa prior, correct? He was.
I think so, but he has enough. He would know.
Oh, sure. Yeah. These two guys will know each other well. I mean, they've both been Fran and Bruce have been. I mean, these are two coaching veterans, as is Kelvin Sampson. Like I said, that's a loaded veteran section of the draw, Tony. There's no question about it.
You had Shelby on, and I talked to him and Tim a little bit. They put out, I want to say it's close to 16 hours of stuff on YouTube about how the committee seeds teams and brackets teams. I watched all 16 hours because, of course, I have nothing else to do.
Good Lord.
But
I'm not 16 hours
on YouTube. But it's not all straight. It was like 4 hours. But anyways, I just want to go.
When I go 3 hours on here, I'm about ready to pass out.
This is just watching, and they had no call-in show. It was literally just watching. But I want to go over it because I got this little thing typed up here because people are discussing.
But you're really fading. Your mic.
Sorry, let me go. Hold on. Let me go. Is that better?
That's better. Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I need to yell. Sorry. Iowa's in Alabama's region because Arkansas was higher on the seed list. And they got the first priority because, shockingly enough, geography-wise, I didn't know this, Arkansas is closer to Des Moines than Birmingham, Alabama. Since they were higher on the true seed list, Arkansas got to go to Des Moines instead of Birmingham, Alabama. Since we were the last 8 seed, we got what was left over.
And I understand what you just said, and I'm not surprised by it. And I'm also not necessarily surprised that Des Moines is closer to Fayetteville. I was just in Fayetteville here not that long ago, Tony. Mm-hmm. But I would guess most Arkansas fans would rather drive to Birmingham because I don't 100%. Think it's much further. And driving up here in March is not always an easy thing to do.
Nope. And so then
that's the fault in that.
Another thing to add on is in the bracketing rules, a team that's not a protected seed, a not top 4 seed, has to be 75 miles or more from the site. So if you're not a top 4 seed and you get selected there, like Auburn is, they are 110 miles from Birmingham. So they just missed the cut of being that close to Birmingham. So that is one of the principles, they call it, like the bracketing principles. And something else that people also don't realize is when they go through the first 3 days, it's all about let's find out who's what seed, rank the seeds, and then they don't even start bracketing until Sunday morning. It's just throwing in, okay, this is the number 1 8 seed. They go wherever's closest to home. So just an interesting thing. Another thing also is Iowa State, if Mississippi State wins, will literally be playing a carbon copy of themselves. Mississippi State ranks 334th in tempo. Iowa State ranks 326th. Don't expect that game, if it happens, to get past 50.
What do you think the Auburn actually doesn't have a terrible offense? But
go ahead.
No, I was because I'm just going. My mind's going a different place. Auburn, Houston in the second round could be a very low scoring game as well. Although Houston, I mean, Ken Palm efficiency, Houston is good on both ends, but they're certainly stronger on the defensive end. That's a reputation under Kelvin Sampson. But I would be intrigued to see what I don't want. I want Iowa to beat Auburn, no question about it. But I would be intrigued. I will be intrigued to see an Auburn Houston matchup in the second round if the Tigers get by the Hawks. And you're going to have Tigers Cougars. It's going to be a feline matchup.
There's a few things lighthearted I want to say. Number one, a coach with a beard has never won an NCAA title. Bruce Pearl still has a beard, so we can just automatically eliminate them from winning.
Well, Bruce or Fran McCaffrey doesn't. So
So we have that in our favor.
What would Fran McCaffrey look like with a beard, by the way?
Oh my! I don't know. Would it be gray? It'd have to be gray, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Over. Yeah. A few things that I saw in Ken Palm with Auburn. Number one, their turnover rate is just like them turning the ball over is just atrocious. Something like they turn the ball over at 18 turnovers a game, or 18 per 100 possessions, I'm sorry, which ranks like in the, where's this at on Ken Palm? 18, wrong team. 172nd. Another stat is they also give up, they are what in offensive rebounds? 317th. So they give up what would that be? Probably the 40th most. Was there 360 teams? 40th or 50th most?
362, something like that, yeah.
In offensive rebounds. So if we hammer the offensive glass, which we have been in a few games lately, we'll be in good shape. And then the other one that I saw that stuck out is they allow a lot of free throw attempts to teams. They give up one of the worst attempts of teams using free throws to score their points because they commit a lot of fouls.
That's interesting.
I mean, if we can win the offensive rebound battle and get to the line, that bodes well.
That would tell me that Auburn probably. We're still talking about Auburn, correct?
Yes.
That would tell me that Auburn is aggressive on closeouts, wants you to drive, and they play an aggressive brand of basketball, which sometimes doesn't work. I mean, again, if you look at total defense, they're really good in three-point defense. They're good in total defense if you're looking at Ken Palm.
They are.
He's got them as 29th best defense, but nothing close to being the 5th best three-point defense in the country. So, yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point. There's a lot of ways to dive into this.
I just had 3 other things, then I'll let you go. One is real quick. It's the net rankings are not meant as rankings, even though we call them rankings. It is literally just a sorting tool for the NCAA to go through. So when we live and die by the net, it just lets us know by quadrants because they have to use something to decide what's quad 1, quad 2, quad 3. So that just gives them a sorting tool how to go through the teams. It's not really a hard and fast, this is a ranking system. It's just a sorting tool. That's
right.
So saying that, the non-conference of 3 of the last 4 teams, the non-conference strength of schedule, was Rutgers was 314, Clemson was 334, and Oklahoma State was 192. On contrast, some of the teams that people were shocked that got in. Pittsburgh was 147, Arizona State was 187, and the Fighting Alfords of Nevada were 134. So I think the committee's sending a clear message: schedule hard in the non-conference.
Okay, what's the message that they're sending with North Carolina State then?
North Carolina State, I didn't even look at their non-conference. They were way in. I just looked at the last 4 in, first 4 out. I don't even know what North Carolina State's was.
Well, they were an 11 seed.
Yeah, no, I was looking. They weren't even the last 4 They were ahead of the
I know
teams who are in the play-in games.
Okay, but I can show you here. This is taken from bballnet.com. All right.
Okay.
North Carolina State 1-6 versus quad 1, 7-4 versus quad 2. All right. 5-0 against quad 3 and 10-0 against quad 4. So the committee has rewarded North Carolina State for being 15-0 against bad opponents and not really dock them for having a losing record against quad 1 and 2 opponents. And by the way, a 1-6 record against quad 1. As opposed to let's look at I brought this up earlier, but let's look at Rutgers and their resume. They're four quad 1 wins, 6-3 against quad 2. But because they had 4 quad 3 losses, 0 quad 4, but 4 quad 3 losses, the committee said that's enough. I guess this committee said
no. They interviewed the guy. I think you even mentioned it. They said it was the mag injury. Like they took that mag injury.
That can't be exclusively. You cannot. That is the most ridiculous line of reasoning. It's the mag injury.
I'm just reporting the news here, Corey. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just telling you what the quote.
Well, I'm gonna rip you for it, Tony.
No, go ahead. That's fine. You can.
If that's the reason, fine. But we're setting a precedent for future teams to not be upfront and honest about injuries. I mean, it'd be foolish moving forward to say yes, our guy's out for the season. We don't want the committee to think that the guy's out for the season. We want the committee to think, hey, we might be able to get Mag back in the next couple of weeks. You see what I'm saying?
I think that's yep. No, I agree. Because UCLA, what happens if UCLA withholds their injury status of the kid they did? They had 2 injuries, I think. They had that one with the Achilles where the kid was out and they announced it right before the Pac-12 tournament. They could have maybe they were talked about as a 1 seed. If UCLA said, well, we're not going to tell you what this kid's injury status is.
I mean, yeah, and here's the deal. The bottom line is, I hate to say this, but we have 68 teams getting into the field, and basically half of those are at-large teams, but it is still an invitational, Tony. And although there's criteria, this is still an invitational based on what the humans that are selecting these teams, what they want, what they feel is best. And when, again, I used the term earlier, splitting hairs. When you're splitting hairs between resumes of Rutgers, North Carolina State, Clemson, Okie State, etc., it's all up for interpretation. I mean, it's all up for interpretation as to what team has the best resume. There's different criteria that you're looking at. When you're looking at college football playoff selections, it's easier to be critical because you've got 4 teams in. That's why we're expanding. That's why we're going to probably end up at, well, we're going to be at 12 and maybe even more eventually. But the bottom line is it's still an invitational as long as you have humans deciding these things and not computers. And I'm not saying computers is the way to go with the BCS issues. And obviously I'm not saying I want that for college basketball, but you're always going to have lines of reasoning that don't make sense to everybody because you have humans who are imperfect making these decisions. By the way, Cody says no 2-foul jail on the tourney. Please and thanks. Don't think you're going to get that wish, Cody, but I understand the frustration. And Michael says, what do we know about Auburn other than Pearl? I've told you about everything I know. I mean, at this point, it's so fresh. I've not been able to. I mean, I literally jumped on 10 minutes after the announcement.
They are on a big slide, and their last win of the regular season was against Tennessee, but that was when Tennessee was without that star point guard they had that they lost to an ACL or whatever. So that was one of their only wins. That they're on a huge slide, but I'm not a believer of hot or cold going into March Madness as we've seen, in recent years with Iowa. Is there any times you want to know? I hadn't pulled up. Iowa State and Drake actually play. One's in the afternoon, one's early evening. So you get to play both.
Why can you send me a link to this so I can actually?
Yeah. Do you want me to? Do you follow Jeff? Do you follow Jeff Goodman on Twitter?
I do.
Go to Jeff Goodman's Twitter. He has the whole spreadsheet up with the networks, the times, all that, and the announced teams too, if you care about that. If you go to Jeff Goodman's Twitter, you can put that up. It's one of his most recent tweets, I'm sure, because it was just tweeted out about 45 minutes ago.
Oh, we even have the
announced teams and all that. Do you see that, what I'm talking about now?
I do. Yeah, let me go ahead and pull this up for everybody. Okay, we can stop sharing the screen, I think.
But yeah, it'll be nice for the people who don't mind watching Iowa State, Drake, and
And
Maybe
Allen
we can
says
get
that
it.
Michigan is not accepting a bid to the NIT. What does that mean? They're what does that mean?
It's probably just like because they're an NIT eligible team, they're not accepting it, just like North Carolina. Remember how I read that state about North Carolina? You don't have to accept a bid to the NIT, just like North Carolina turned it down. Michigan saying, nope, we don't want to go to the NIT either.
I'm just flabbergasted by these. Again, who's making the decisions? First of all, why would you not want the extra revenue as a home team in the NIT? Why would you not want that extra revenue? Secondly, just like bowl practice, why would a team ever turn down a bowl invite? You get another month of practice. You're going to get another, who knows how long playing in the NIT. If you can keep winning, you're going to have a lot of time. You're going to have a chance in a tournament setting. I think that's the most foolish stance ever known. And I'm not shocked at all that Juwan Howard would make a decision like that.
What's he telling Hunter Dickinson? Hey, thanks for playing all these years. See ya. Get out of here.
Maybe Hunter Dickinson doesn't want to play. And if he don't want to play,
then
there's a reason. There's the reason you didn't make the tournament.
Yeah. But it sets up nice, schedule on a calming factor. The basketball schedule sets up nice. We had a nice dinner time Thursday game, and we got an afternoon game for one of the teams and evening game for the other two.
I mean, it'll be great if
Iowa wins on Thursday. Then it'll be easier to watch the games on Friday.
If Iowa wins on Thursday, then we're gonna have a Saturday evening game.
Well, I don't know. I think we might be the afternoon, and the only reason I say that, well, maybe because it's Saturday. I think they might schedule because Alabama is the other team in Birmingham. So who are they going to give preferential treatment to time-wise? Does Alabama want to play Saturday night, or do they want to play Sunday at noon, 1 or 2? You know what I mean?
Well,
or does what I'm saying make sense, I guess?
I know what you're saying. Right now I'm trying to get I apologize, Tony. I'm trying to get
you're fine.
Jeff Goodman's
the screen share of
I want to get it on the screen for everybody to be able to see. Let me see if I can do this. Let's try this one more time here.
Meanwhile, I can tell everyone, get your Iowa Soul shirts, the bench shirts.
Get your what?
These are how every year they have those the shirts that the players wear. They always have different sayings. The bench.
Yeah.
That's this year's.
Okay.
I was just trying to fill dead time. Sorry.
I think I know why it's not wanting to work, because it created these files, and let's just share. Share. I'm going to share the Jeff Goodman
on Twitter. Yeah.
You can see. All right. Can you see that?
There we go. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. You're good.
All right. Well, let's get this off of here. So hopefully you can all see that. That's the schedule for
Friday.
For the first round games on Fridays. So
he did it backwards. He put Friday.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So first four, as you can see, in Dayton on Tuesday. We're talking about the men right now. Southeast Missouri State, a team that Iowa beat actually earlier this year. They'll play Corpus Christi on Tuesday, and then of course Pitt and Mississippi State, which should be a good one. Jeff Capel and company, the surprise team out of the ACC. And then, of course, on Wednesday,
Chris Jans, Corey.
Say again.
Chris Jans, Iowa boys at Mississippi State.
Chris Jans at Mississippi State. Farley Dickinson will play Texas Southern, a team with an what is Texas Southern's record this year?
I'll look it up for you.
Yeah, look up that. And then Steve Alford and the Wolfpack will play Arizona State. Thursday, Maryland and West Virginia, the 8-9 game, which very easily could have been Iowa, so I'm happy that Iowa's playing in the later slot on Thursday, or excuse me, on Thursday. Maryland, West Virginia in Birmingham on CBS. Furman, Virginia in Orlando on True TV. Also an early game. Utah State, Mizzou, Howard and Kansas. Southeast Missouri State, Texas A&M winner. That's Corpus Christi winner. Will play Alabama on CBS in the afternoon slot in Birmingham. Charleston will play San Diego State. Princeton will take on Arizona. Illinois taking on Arkansas as the first of the morning/afternoon session. And then in the evening, Iowa and Auburn will kick things off on TNT from Birmingham. And how about this? Nance, Raftery, Hill, and Wolfson. Pretty good crew.
That's the A crew. That's the A crew.
That's the A crew. And I'm surprised that it's not a CBS game, frankly, but maybe it's the Duke effect. Duke will get Oral Roberts that evening with Kevin Harlan on the call there. Colgate and Texas, Boise State Northwestern on True TV. And then Northern Kentucky, the Norsemen will play Houston on TNT in the late slot. Louisiana will play Tennessee, Penn State, Texas A&M, and then UNC Asheville and UCLA.
It's the reason the CBS gets that also is because the second game's a 4 versus whatever. So those are going to be 2 better games for the night slot because they get Duke as a 5 seed and Tennessee is the 4 seed. And then also Texas Southern's record was 14-20 before you continue on to Friday.
Okay.
Did you get all that 14-20? Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're right. We're going to ban a couple of people who tried to sneak into the show. Okay. Yeah, and I don't think anybody cares about me going through the Friday schedule. I don't think so. We won't do that.
Well, I mean, just to show Drake and whatever, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Drake, Iowa State will play in the afternoon slot, 3:10. I guess we can run. Let's just run through them. We get some Big Ten games in here. First game of the day on CBS in Columbus, USC and Michigan State. True TV, it's Kennesaw State taking on Xavier. UC Santa Barbara will play Baylor, VCU and St. Mary's, Vermont, and Marquette. And then the winner of that Pitt-Mississippi State game will play the Cyclones with Ian Eagle on the call on True TV at 3:10 Eastern, 2:10 Central. North Carolina State will play a dangerous Creighton team at 3 o'clock Central. And then Iona, maybe, Rick Pitino's last game as a head coach for the Gales, will play UConn. And then in the evening slot, or evening session, I should say, Texas Southern, Farley Dickinson. The winner of that game will play the 1 seed Purdue. Providence and Kentucky, Drake and Miami. It's a TBS game at 6:25 Central Time from Albany, New York. Not sure who holds the advantage there as far as travel. Long ways away from both of those schools. Grand Canyon and Gonzaga. Those 2 teams will play out in Denver in the evening. Florida Atlantic will play an impressive Memphis team that knocked off Houston today. Montana State will play Kansas State. Kent State will take on the Hoosiers. And then the winner of that Alford and Sun Devil game will play the Horned Frogs of TCU late game on Friday night. So
do you I'll let you go on this. On Selection Sunday, my biggest fear is when they put Iona in the bracket because it looks so much like Iowa.
So
whenever I see Iona in the bracket, I'm like, oh great, we're we're not a 14.
We're a 14.
Yeah, it's just because whenever they get in the bracket and we're in the bracket, I just hate Iona being announced because quick glance looks like Iowa.
Yep. I've done the same thing. I used to, back when we relied on the bottom line on ESPN for school. Yeah. I used to do it all the time. You'd say, "Oh, look, Iowa play." Okay, never mind. It's Iona. Yep. I've done it.
Maybe they won't be as relevant if St. Richard Pitino is no longer there.
That's very possible, very likely.
Yes. Well, I'll let you go, and it sounds like you got a few more callers, and you'll have something you said later on before the game Thursday.
We'll
tentatively
have a preview show maybe Wednesday. I'll stay tuned for that. Yep. Okay. And by the way, Tony, we'll have a bracket group here from the Hawkeye of the Storm bracket group. So fill out your brackets likely through ESPN. I'll have to throw a link up for that as well.
Okay. So that probably post on Twitter or Facebook.
I'll post it everywhere. Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, thanks again, everything. Thanks for everything, Corey.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate your support, sir. All right. Let's go to our call line. Let's go to our caller who's been waiting for a half hour. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey. It's Darrell MVP. How you doing?
Darrell MVP, I'm doing well, and I'm sure you want to talk both the men's and the women's bracket, and I'm ready to do that. Do you mind if I give our sponsor a plug first?
No problem.
Let's do that first, folks. A reminder to check out Ascent Nutrition. I'm going to share my screen and give everybody an idea of what Ascent Nutrition is offering. They've got these new mushroom products that are taking the world by storm. And if you've not visited the website, it's goascentnutrition.com, goascentnutrition.com. Start your order today and start your health plan with Ascent Nutrition, including with their new mushroom products. I mentioned on a show the other day, their agarikon mushroom or their lion's mane mushroom. It's interesting. The agarikon mushroom powder specifically has a very intriguing backstory. It was actually researched by the Department of Defense's Biodefense Bioshield program in conjunction, with the NIH and NIAID. Military and government's research into agarikon showed how its rare compounds exerted strong biological activity. Through traditional use, as well as the science of today, agarikon is used to support respiratory and lung health, along with immune system health, neurological health, and it produces a healthy inflammatory response in the body. This powder is grown in the U.S. with top national safety and qualification standards. They also do genetic testing, and they grow their mushrooms longer than others, which ensures certain bioactive compound percentages are met and exceeded. And as I mentioned, not only this agarikon mushroom available, this premium stuff available through Ascent Nutrition, but also the lion's mane mushroom, which is shown to support brain health, memory, healthy stress response, and overall immune system health. You can put these things in yogurt, juice, smoothies, whatever you like. And it really doesn't taste like much. It's just like their algae oil, DHA, and their fulvic and humic acid products. Great stuff for your health, for your immune system, etc. And use the code Hawkeyes. That's the code Hawkeyes, plural, to get a discount. Again, visit goascentnutrition.com. This is the website, folks. Hit shop now and use that code Hawkeyes for 15% off your order. I'll throw the banner up here for everybody. If you're new to the show and you haven't heard of our sponsor, again, please consider supporting our sponsor. Give these awesome new products some research, give them some support, and get a discount along the way. All right, Drill MVP, let's talk Hawks.
Okay. Well, I would like to talk about the whole bracket, if that's okay, instead of just Iowa.
Sure.
Okay. But we'll start with Iowa since they are the team of the hour in this show. Unfortunately, this is probably one of the worst case scenarios for their likely draw, having to play effectively a road game. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult, Corey. I don't know how to say it any other way.
It is, but again, you probably heard me earlier, Drill MVP. I don't know the percentages of how many War Eagle fans you think are going to be there in comparison to Crimson Tide fans who will probably be rooting for Iowa.
Well, I would imagine that there's going to be more. I think there will be like 10%, if I had to take a guess, of Alabama fans that are there just to root against Auburn.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not saying they're there just to root against Auburn, but you don't think a lot of Alabama fans will buy tickets for both sessions, given the fact that they're right there in Birmingham?
They could, but I feel like that's more of a diehard type tradition than a casual fan.
No, it's going to be I'm not saying I don't believe it's a true road game. How far is Auburn, Alabama from Birmingham?
I do not know that, Corey.
I can find out. I'm just curious on this. Birmingham. Okay. Distance from Birmingham to Auburn. Why is this so difficult just to Google something? 99 miles. 99 miles from Auburn to Birmingham, according to distance-cities.com.
Yeah, well, that's probably one of the closer travels if I had to take a guess.
Yeah. That's about as close as that's about the same distance if Iowa had gone to Des Moines. That's about the same distance.
Yeah, so it will be a de facto home game for them. And I just think with home games being more important this year than it feels like normally, it's just a tough draw for them. And even if they do somehow win, they got to play Houston. And Corey, I haven't listened to your whole show, but I mentioned most of it. How Kansas did not get the number 1 overall seed does not make any sense to me.
Well, Kansas didn't get the number 2 overall seed.
Right. But they should have, in my opinion, been the number 1 overall seed. Now, I understand why Alabama's ahead of Houston, because they actually played and Alabama beat Houston at Houston. So I respect honoring that result. But Kansas, look at their quad 1 win compared to any of the other teams that are even in discussion. It's Kansas all day. Because what the committee is basically, what I'm referring is they're getting punished for playing a very, very difficult schedule. And that should not be the case at all.
Yeah, we're looking at
And,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, with you saying you wanted to play Alabama, well, Iowa would have played Alabama in the second round, and I think with those style of matchups, I think I was more likely to beat Alabama than Houston if they were to play in the second round.
I agree.
So,
but with that being said, I also don't know. Like, Houston may come out and score a ton of points. I know the numbers. I mean, if you look at Houston's, their KenPom numbers are. I don't know how much you read into KenPom numbers or rankings, Drill MVP. But if you look at their KenPom ratings, they're right now they're number one in total rankings, but they're the 11th best offense in the country and the 4th best defense. That's an interesting number to me. I mean, I don't know where they rank in points per game. I can tell you this: if you look at their schedule, they don't score a ton of points. You know this, Drill MVP. They scored 66 against Oregon earlier. I'm talking about major teams. 66 against Oregon. They scored 53 against St. Mary's. Scored 65 against Bama. Scored 69 against Virginia. And I understand slower pace.
Well, that's actually impressive. 69 against Virginia is impressive.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we're looking at defensive efficiency and ranking them as top 11 team in the country. They play a slower pace, so they might be efficient, but they're not going to score a ton of points. I don't know where they rank nationally in points per game. And I mean, they scored. Look, their games. You look through the list here. Yeah, they scored 80 against Tulsa, 80 against SMU. But I'm talking against high major opponents, and they scored 67 against Memphis. Last game of the season, scored 65 in a loss to Memphis. They beat East Carolina, scored 60 against the best opponents on their schedule, mostly in the non-conference. They struggled to score. In fact, I don't believe they scored 70 in any of those games. I'm going back to double check.
None that you listed.
Scored 83 against, I guess I'll give them this. They scored 83 against a good Oral Roberts team and beat them by a lot. But against those other Power 5 teams, struggled to hit 70. So I wouldn't think Iowa's going to come in there and score 40. I think if Iowa plays Houston, now Iowa doesn't play great defense, so maybe they'll give up 80 to Houston. But if Iowa can shoot the ball decently well, which is a tall order against that team, they'll be in the game in the second half. I have confidence in that.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying Iowa can't win. That'd be preposterous and ridiculous, in my opinion, to say Iowa can absolutely beat Houston. I'm just saying, out of all the teams to get to the Sweet 16, that's one of the harder matchups Iowa could have drawn realistically. Outside of Kansas, I think that's probably the hardest matchup they could have drawn, because Houston also has something else you haven't touched on, which is experience. Over the last few years with their head coach, they've been very experienced getting far in the tournament. And with the Final Four being in Houston this year, it kind of feels like they might be a team of destiny this year.
I couldn't agree more, and I'd say the same thing about Auburn. Bruce Pearl has experience winning in this tournament, and they're playing the first 2 rounds and in a de facto home environment potentially. So I agree.
So, you know what? I don't think anybody's done. And I'm going to give you my Final Four, Corey, now. Okay. Okay. I've got, and some of this does not make sense, which is why it makes sense, because it's March Madness, Corey. Okay. I've got Virginia, Texas, Kansas, Michigan State as the Final Four. I've got Kansas, Virginia in the national championship game, and I have Kansas winning it all.
Michigan, I will give you that. Michigan State has a very favorable draw.
I think that bottom left quadrant is going to be the upset quadrant. Like, I've got Oral Roberts in the Elite Eight.
I'll be surprised if Marquette makes it to the Elite Eight. I'll be surprised. And seeding wise, they should.
Right. Well, I believe Shaka Smart, their head coach, has won 0 tournament games. And I think that lack of experience is going to hurt him. I remember a few years ago, the reason he got fired for Texas, or was the game after he got fired for Texas, was when he lost to Abilene Christian as a 3-14 upset. So he doesn't have a good track record in the tournament. And I think that lack of experience against somebody like Tom Izzo, who I heard was in this tournament for 25 straight years, I think that's going to get to Marquette. Marquette's a great team. They've won the Big East by a lot against Xavier, but, I just don't trust their head coach.
I get you.
Yeah. Corey, have you thought of a Final Four
For the men?
Yeah.
I gotta look at this bracket more. I mean, heading into the tournament, I would have probably, unfortunately, I probably would have given a nod to Houston. I'm not bought into Purdue. I think earlier in the year, Purdue looked like the best team in the country, but they've looked vulnerable at times. Heck, Penn State almost overcame a 17-point deficit today in the Big Ten championship game. I think Kansas, again, assuming Bill Self is healthy, wish the best to him. I think they're dangerous, of course, given who he is.
Yeah, he's coming back. They said he's coming back.
Well, I know he's coming back, but I'm just saying I hope he's healthy. I hope he's his health sustains and whatnot.
Yeah, himself.
Yeah. I think the Big Ten is going to be hard pressed to get to the Final Four. I'll say that, and that's unfortunate. I hate to think that you got to put all your chips on Michigan State. By the way, I'm not encouraging betting, but I'm just saying I don't think Michigan State's the same. I think they got a shot. I think they got the best draw. But if you're a Big Ten fan, you just got to hope this conference represents better into the second weekend, and they've got to put some teams in the Elite Eight. They've got to.
Yeah, and I forgot somebody pointed out in the chat that Shaka was the head coach of that VCU team that made the Final Four as an 11 seed, I believe. So I forgot about that, but still, I just don't trust him in general. Over the recent few years, he hasn't
been good in the tournament since his time at VCU.
Yeah, and that's been a while ago now.
Yes, it has.
I mean, yeah. So for the women's side, Corey, you're asking, why does a 1 versus 2 matter? Well, there are some obvious advantages to being a 1. You get an easier draw to the Elite Eight as compared to the 2. As an Iowa fan, Corey, I would hope you remembered Creighton, how they beat Iowa. If Iowa was the 1 seed, they wouldn't have had to play Creighton in the second round. So there is that advantage.
Yeah.
The second advantage is you get to wear home jerseys instead of road jerseys. I don't know if you're superstitious or anything like that, but that might matter.
Okay.
And that to be honest, that's all I really got for you, Corey.
Okay. I appreciate Drill MVP, and like I said, I'm going to be releasing my picks either Monday or Tuesday. My official bracket, and be sure to join the bracket challenge here that will be a part of this show. So
yeah, I've got to put. Are you going to do a men's and women's one, or just a men's one?
I'll do. That's a good question. Great question. I hadn't planned on doing a women's one, but probably will. Probably will. We'll have to figure that out. Yeah, probably will.
Yeah, good luck to the women's. Hopefully, I think they can absolutely make the Final Four with their draw. Luckily, they don't have to play South Carolina to win. I think the Final Four is the ceiling and reasonable expectation for where Iowa should finish this year. Would you agree with that?
Given the fact that it didn't make it to the second weekend last year, they have to at least make it to the second weekend. Obviously, a Sweet 16, people aren't going to be thrilled with that. But I would say, yeah, the Final Four is the goal. I think Elite Eight, you're probably happy, not thrilled, but you're probably walking away saying that's a pretty successful season. But I'd agree with your estimate. Yeah.
Yeah, and just for the women's side, to do a Final Four to make it consistent, I have South Carolina. I mean, they're South Carolina. And then I'm going to go with LSU. They've only lost 2 games all season. As a 3 seed, the only 2 teams they've lost to was South Carolina and I believe that was it, South Carolina, twice. And they're a 3 seed. UConn, Iowa with South Carolina, UConn in the national championship game. And I'm going to go with South Carolina winning it all.
Really going out on a limb with that one, aren't you?
Yeah, well, last year, Corey, I went 4 for 4 in my women's Final Four. So it doesn't matter if you go out on a limb. It matters if you get them right.
You're right.
And unfortunately, unlike the men's game, I just don't think there's nearly as much parity for the women's game at the top of the compared to the men. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, Corey, that's all I got for you. You've been doing a great job with the show. Good luck to Iowa.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you calling in as always.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, we'll move to our next caller. But first, Lemansky, thank you for the super chat. Lemansky, first 3 games the NIT are played at college campuses. Championship in Vegas. Interested if Badgers accept invite and reward their players. Boy, I just cannot imagine not doing that. I'd like to get Coach's perspective on that as well to ask him. Let's go to our next caller. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Corey, this is Zach. How's it going tonight?
Good, Zach. I'm 2.5 hours in. How are you?
It's another night. I don't know. I stopped watching for a little bit to watch the women's selection special. I don't know. So you might have answered this question. Was there a reason that on the men's side that all 3 Iowa teams are put in one region? And I know Drake couldn't host, but neither the other Iowa teams are put in Des Moines.
We're talking about the men now. I'm sorry. We're
Yeah.
talking about the men.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I again, there's an order of operations with these things, and if my understanding is as they go down the seed lines, if the closest venue is available, then they're going to go with the closest venue they can. So I believe that's how it works. That's what I understood in conversations with Shelby Mast and Tim Kruger. Other than that, I can't answer that question. I will say this: Iowa State has not been. I mean, they obviously travel very well. They haven't been great at home this year. They've been okay. They've lost more games than they normally would. Iowa's been really good at home, but Iowa doesn't travel very well. Not the basketball team doesn't seem to travel very well. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I blame last year's loss on going to Buffalo, but it would be nice to not have to play at Auburn, essentially.
Right. And I'm in one of those. I think you might have said this on an earlier show, too. I'm one of those where I think the Big Ten tournament should not end on Sunday. I think they should move it up a day, move everything up at least a day.
I agree.
Because
I mean,
you're not helping a team out who might go 4 in 4 days and then got to play 4 days later.
It is tradition. There's something that's cool about it, but I just don't know that it does a whole lot for the conference. I think it does more harm than good.
Yeah, and as the bracketologist has pointed out, if they're not really paying attention to it, except unless someone pulls a massive upset and wasn't in the tournament and they win the Big Ten tournament and they're in, then there's really no bearing on the tournament if it's that late.
Yeah.
As we kind of found out with Iowa last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now on the women's side, I do think Iowa might have gotten a little bit hosed out of a 1 seed because they're the number 2 ranked team in the country. However, I think Iowa should just put that on a bulletin board and just say, prove it.
Yeah, I agree. It's bulletin board material. Use it as a chip on the shoulder. Who cares about the ranking? Like, those rankings don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like, they can be second in the AP. They can be number 1 in the AP. It means nothing. I give the committee this. I think the committee does a lot more work than the people who are voting on those polls.
Right.
A lot more work.
I mean, if the women would have played Indiana in the championship game and won, then they might have flipped the 2.
Maybe. But I don't know that I don't think there's a ton of, I mean, Indiana lost before they made it to the championship game. So I don't know about that.
Right.
I don't know that the committee looks at the tournament as much as maybe we think they do. I think that's the big thing here.
Yeah. And the other thing, I know the women's game's on Friday. I know they have announced the time. I hope it's not in the daytime because Carver's hard enough to park in, and I know it's going to be a sellout. But part of then Carver parking gets taken out due to hospital parking. So I hope that they can try to negotiate to maybe being at like 6 and 8:30 instead of the last couple of times it's been at like 11 and 1:30.
Would not be surprised, given the Caitlin Clark effect and given what you just said, if it's all about TV, Zach, as you know, but I would not be surprised if it's in the evening. I would guess that ESPN wants that as a primetime game. That's my hunch.
Well, I would hope so, since, I mean, even on TV during the selection show, when they announced I was a 2 seed, they were just glowing about when they were there for College Game Day and how raucous that crowd was.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they do kind of Iowa solid there and say, we understand you might get more fans showing out at night, So let's get this going.
Yep, I agree.
And I have no doubt Carver will be sold out.
Absolutely. Should be. I mean, heck, I may even run down there.
I'm going to try too. I don't know what their reasoning now behind 2 regional sites. Probably attendance. That seems a little weird.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Since they're only going to be in Greenville and Seattle.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That was the first I heard about that. But I don't know. That's a lot of it's one. I guess, I mean, they're regionals, so it's not like you're having to accommodate 24 teams. It's, but
right.
In Seattle's obviously a bigger metropolis than Greensboro, but yeah, kind of interesting to change there. But the women's tournament has been a little bit more. They've obviously, with playing at home in the first 2 rounds, they've done things to try to help with viewership, with attendance. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something with that. The reason is viewership and attendance, trying to promote the game more, would be my guess somehow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because up until they did the number 1 to number 4 seeds, it was, I believe, whoever ranked the top 16, I believe, in attendance. Because I think Iowa's had home court when they were, I believe, an 8 seed, and they played number 1 Notre Dame in the second round at Carver, but it was just because of attendance.
Yeah.
So I would like to see maybe the NCAA on the women's side maybe play, maybe a Denver and Indianapolis, kind of more too centralized, so you're not going to each coast. Each team might have a little bit more of equal travel.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, this is the first year they've done this because COVID year. They all played in Texas, same as the men when they all played in Indiana. So maybe they see how this will go, or I could say maybe you let the home team or number 1 seed get home court until the Final Four. Who knows?
Yeah, there's different ways to try to promote this, but I will say this: if you're Iowa, you've got like I said, you've got the Caitlin Clark effect. You have a passionate home fan base. It is an opportunity to. I mean, Iowa really has a lot on their shoulders as far as driving and building the game and pushing the game forward, and that will only increase with tournament. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't get a 1 seed for that reason only, because I would think the committee might favor Iowa given Caitlin Clark and the reputation of Iowa, but it gives Iowa an opportunity to kind of play as the underdog if they can get to the Elite 8.
Yep, and hopefully they do. Yeah, I think Elite 8 would be considered a success. Obviously, Final Four would be, holy crap, we made it there again. I think first time since the 90s, back in the C. Vivian Stringer era. I'm not as optimistic as the men might not even make it out of the first day.
Yeah, that's possible.
But I am one of those. I know you talked about this after the Michigan State game. I'm one of those fans that occasionally, when I think the game is out of hand on the losing side, yeah, I turn the channel. Keep the DVR running, but I turn the channel. But I somehow, for some reason, I did not during the Michigan State game, and I don't know why.
Well, I'm hopeful that you are happy you made that decision.
Yes. But yeah, big games this week against Auburn, and I believe the women play Southeast Louisiana. Go Hawks, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the phone call, sir.
Thank you. Yep.
By the way, I just tried to throw up the link to our bracket challenge in the live chat. The link's too long. StreamYard won't take it. YouTube won't take it. So I'm going to post it in the description. You may have to refresh the stream potentially. I'll throw it up in the description. You can search on ESPN. The group name is capital F, capital T, and then space Hawkeye of the Storm. So FT Hawkeye of the Storm. Just like it sounds. And let's see here. I'll go ahead and update this in the description. Anybody that wants to be a part of our bracket challenge here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, just click the link in the description below. I know it's a long link. Boy, it shouldn't be that long. Why is it that long? What is going on here? Let's see if we can make this a little bit shorter. All right. I think I just got it to go shorter. So let's go back to the live chat. I'll throw this up here. Let's see if it works. All right. That should work, folks. If you click that link, the link I just threw up. Yep, that'll send you to the right place. I'll also throw it up in the description so you have it. But join our bracket challenge by clicking that link. It'll send you to ESPN. Again, the group name is capital F, capital T, Hawkeye of the Storm. I'll go ahead and how about I go ahead and share my screen so you can see the group itself. There it is, folks. FT Hawkeye of the Storm. That's the group. If you want to join the challenge and compete against me, and maybe we'll get a bracket from some of our celebrity guests. That'd be awesome. I need to talk to. I know. Gary's not necessarily the most prediction driven, but we'll see if we can get Gary to fill out a bracket. But again, join the challenge. FT Hawkeye of the Storm on ESPN. Again, I just threw it up in the description and in the live chat. Steve says, can we win beef jerky? That's a great question. That is a great question. Good question, Steve. Get back to you on that. I'll maybe give some information about, I haven't done prizes in the past. Maybe we can figure that out. I know it's a short turnaround, but maybe I'll give you people some update on that tomorrow. Figure something out. Thank you for that suggestion, Steve. Ari Gold says, who's the number 1 seed in our bracket? I think he's talking about the women. I'm assuming. I would assume we're talking about the men, Ari Gold. Houston's number 1 seed in the men's bracket. The women's bracket, it is Stanford. Ben says, does anyone know the start time? 5:50 for the men, Ben, on Thursday on TNT. The women will play on Friday. Don't believe we have a starting time yet for that game, the Hawkeyes and the Lions of Southeast Louisiana. Carrie, thank you for the super sticker earlier, Carrie. Did not mean to ignore it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And James, yes, I will put the link to the bracket challenge on Twitter. Clint says, I agree with you, Corey. How important are those non-conference games in December? How does the conference move up when the conference season starts? I'd love to ask a committee member this, or whoever came up with the net rankings, because it is a bit confusing as far as conferences and where they're allotted, where they're positioned in the net rankings once you hit January. Just doesn't seem like there's a lot of room for moving around. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm wrong. Dom says, what's the reaction if Iowa loses first round? Not good. Not good. Dante says, I think Iowa will beat Auburn. I think Northwestern will beat Boise State. Would not be shocked by either. Those are both higher seeds in the conference. The Big Ten needs to get a few teams to the second weekend, preferably to the Elite Eight. It'd be great to get a team or two to the Final Four. The Big Ten's due, folks. The Big Ten is due. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to run through the brackets one more time. We'll go from top to bottom in. Let's start with the men's. And we will start with, let's get rid of these comments. Appreciate everybody interacting today. We'll start in the South region of the men's bracket. Alabama taking on Texas A&M Corpus Christi, or Southeastern Missouri, a team Iowa played earlier in the season. That first round game will be in Birmingham, so basically a home game for the Tide. Maryland will play West Virginia. Let me get it out right. Maryland will play West Virginia in the 8-9 game in that section of the draw. San Diego State, the 5 seed, will play the 12 seed Charleston. Also, Virginia, the 4 seed, will play the 13 seed Furman, their first NCAA tournament appearance since I think like 1980 something. Creighton, the 6 seed, red hot Blue Jay team, will play North Carolina State. The Wolfpack in Denver. Baylor, the 3 seed, will play UC Santa Barbara, the 14 seed. How about number 7 Missouri playing number 10 Utah State, and then number 2 Arizona will play Ivy League champs Princeton. We head over to the East bracket, or the East region, I should say. The number 1 seed Purdue will play Texas Southern, or Farley Dickinson will be a first 4 game. 8 Memphis will play 9 FAU. Florida Atlantic 31-3 in the season. Difficult game for the Tigers of Memphis. Number 5 Duke will play number 12 Oral Roberts, also a 30-win team this year. Number 4 Tennessee will play number 13 Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. 6 Kentucky will play 11 Providence, the Friars get into the tournament at 21-11. Number 3, Kansas State, and number 14, Montana State. Number 7, Michigan State, and number 10, USC, and then number 2, Marquette, and number 15, Vermont. I think it's a favorable draw for the Michigan State Spartans to make some noise. We go up to the Midwest region. Houston will play in Birmingham against Northern Kentucky, 116 game, and then Iowa Auburn in the 8-9 game. Winner of that game will play the Cougars more than likely. Difficult path for Auburn or Iowa, but that's what you get when you fall to the 8 or 9 seed. Miami, that's Miami, Florida, will play Missouri Valley Conference champions Drake. That game will be on Friday. Indiana, the 4 seed, will play the 13 seed Kent State. How about the 6-seeded Cyclones playing the winner of Pitt and Mississippi State? Jack Nungy and the Musketeers of Xavier, the 3 seed, will play Kennesaw State on Friday. And then Texas A&M will play Penn State, the 7-10 game on Thursday in Des Moines. And then Texas Colgate, also in Des Moines, the 2:15 matchup in the Midwest region. In the final region, the West region, it's Kansas and Howard, the 116 game in Des Moines. Also, Arkansas, the 8 seed, and number 9, Illinois. Not long drives for either of those fan bases. Very doable from Fayetteville and Champaign. Those games will be in Des Moines. In Albany, New York, it's the 5 seed St. Mary's playing the 12 seed Virginia Commonwealth. The Yukon Huskies, the 4 seed, playing Rick Pitino's Iona Gales, the 13 seed in Albany. Also, TCU, the 6 seed, playing the winner of Steve Alford's Wolfpack and Arizona State. That's a first 4 game, and that first round game will take place on Friday. How about a dangerous 3 seed, 28-5 Gonzaga playing Grand Canyon? Congratulations to the Antelopes for getting back in. Northwestern, the 7 seed, playing the 10 seed Boise State. UCLA, that's the 2 seed Bruins, and they'll play UNC Asheville. The Bruins up the state from their LA base. They'll be playing up in Sac City. So that's the men's bracket, folks. I don't love Iowa's draw. I don't hate Iowa's draw. I think it could have been a lot better. I don't love Houston as a second-round matchup. I do think it's intriguing because a lot of people are already counting Iowa out based on some of the response I've had today during the show. I certainly would not do that. I think Iowa's got an opportunity if they can shoot threes. Obviously, I'm kind of stating the obvious there, but it's just been such a 3-point dependent team all year, and no different, I'm sure, once we get down to Birmingham against a team in Auburn who really knows how to defend the 3. All right, let's get to the women's bracket before we finish this thing out. I think. Let's see if we can get the bracket up on the screen for everybody. Let's see. All right. We're going to use Twitter for this, I think. Let's see if we can do this. Let's see if this works. No, it's not going to work. All right. We'll go option B. Pardon me for just a moment, folks, as I try to get a bracket that's a little bit easier on the eyes for everybody. All right. I think this should work. Hopefully everybody can see this once I share my screen. All right. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's kind of small. Let's blow this up a little bit. That's a little bit blurry on your end, but hopefully y'all can see that okay. South Carolina playing Norfolk State, the Gamecocks, the overall number 1 in the Greenville 1 region. 8 South Florida taking on 9 Marquette. 5 Oklahoma playing the 12 seed Portland. And then the 4 seed UCLA playing Sac State, that Sacramento State, the 13 seed, the 6 seed Creighton, team that upset Iowa as a 7. I was a 7 or a 10. I remember the 7-10 game, I know. They'll play the winner of Illinois and Mississippi State. The 3 seed Notre Dame playing Southern Utah. Number 7 Arizona playing number 10 West Virginia. And the 2 seed Maryland playing Holy Cross in the Greenville 1 region. Looking at the Seattle 4. Well, let's go jump over to the Greenville 2 region. Indiana, the 1 seed, will play the winner of, Monmouth and Tennessee Tech, I believe. And then the 8 seed Oklahoma State playing number 9 at Miami, Florida. The 5 seed Washington State will play Florida Gulf Coast. Number 4 Villanova will play 13 Cleveland State. 6 Michigan will play 11 UNLV, a 30-win Rebel team. Number 3 LSU will play number 14 Hawaii. Number 7 NC State will play number 10 Princeton, who also got in the men's side. Number 2 Utah will play Gardner Webb, the 15 seed. Move down to Seattle 3. Virginia Tech, the 1 seed, will play Chattanooga. Number 8 USC will play number 9 South Dakota State. Number 5 Iowa State will play number 12 Toledo. Number 4 Tennessee will play number 13 St. Louis. Number 6 North Carolina will play the winner of St. John's Purdue, the 11 seed play-in game. Number 3 Ohio State will play James Madison. Number 7 Baylor will play number 10 Alabama. Number 2 UConn will play number 15 Vermont. And then finally in the Seattle 4 region, number 1 Stanford will play the winner of Southern. And who is SHU? Who is SHU? Somebody give me that. SHU. Number 8 Ole Miss will play number 9 Gonzaga. Number 5 Louisville will play number 12 Drake. Bulldogs getting in both the women's and the men's draw. Number 4 Texas will play number 13 East Carolina. Number 6 Colorado will play number 11 Middle Tennessee State. Number 3 Duke will play number 14 Iona. Number 7 Florida State will play number 10 Georgia. And how about the Hawkeyes? Final matchup announced actually on ESPN. They'll play the 15 seed Southeastern Louisiana. The Hawkeyes, the 2 seed, they'll play host in hopefully 2 straight games. They'll play host to a bunch of games, well, a couple games. Those first 2 games in the first round. And then, of course, the winner of Florida State, Georgia will play the winner of Iowa and Southeastern Louisiana. So hope I didn't lose you on that. Hopefully that helps some people who are listening on the podcast later. Yes, Kelly, Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart. Thank you for that, Kelly. Spot says, how many games will the women play in Carver? They'll play the first 2 in Carver, assuming they win the first, right? They'll play 2 in Carver. Yes, I see the comment here about, well, thank you, Kevin, for the compliment on the stream. And David says, try and get Coach Patterson to fill out a bracket. I will do that. I will definitely do that. C. Crow, what's the reaction if Iowa loses in their second game? A lot of upset people. I think the wait is long overdue for a trip to the Sweet 16. No question about it. Michael wants to bring Caitlin Clark onto the men's roster. So appreciate everybody being here, folks. A reminder, the Iowa men will play on Thursday, 5:50 p.m. Central Time. It's the Hawks and the Auburn Tigers. 8-9 game, first round of the NCAA tournament down in Birmingham. I'm assuming tickets on sale now for all sessions. Also, the Iowa women will play the 15 seed Southeastern Louisiana on Friday. Time to be determined. I'll release my official picks on my selections for at least the men's. We'll figure out the women's as well. I'll fill out a bracket for the women's as well. Stay tuned for another edition of Brada's Branded Thoughts. Appreciate everybody being here. And we'll have a preview show with Coach Close coming up prior to Thursday's first round game. Tons of content, folks. And as always, I'll be live with Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, 4:30 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday. As you see on the bottom ticker, donate to the channel. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, please and thank you. It does help the show immensely, especially as we go into the off season. Remember, things slow down, so it's much appreciated if you can support this channel now. That way, this channel's still around once we head back into football and basketball season next season, next fall. All right, folks, appreciate you all being here. Congratulations to the Hawkeye men and the Hawkeye women. Great basketball down the road, folks, later on this week. We'll talk to you soon.